We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's pro football focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Do you not understand that they are that way because you're Joe Flacco?
And you just like to discredit things that people deserve credit for.
That you can't possibly be expected to defend that.
Talk about the game, Sam.
So,
who cares about what people think about us?
Yeah, I like football season, all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo here with Sam Monson. We are live on YouTube, live on Twitter. Thanks to everybody for tuning in.
On time this time.
Yes, we promised 7 a.m. on a Monday morning, so just set it in your calendars. All right, West Coast folks, just wake up at 4 and watch and join us. PFF NFL podcast.
I mean, if we're up, I don't see any reason why you can't be.
Yes, exactly. And we were up just a few hours ago, just like you were as well.
Yeah.
So let's get into this. All the week 3 action. We're going to review all the games. First off, we're going to send people to the PFF Daily for 2 things. The Thursday night game, Carolina Panthers moved to 3-0. We hit that on Friday, the PFF NFL Daily. What we asked was, is the Panthers defense for real? So we focused on the defense there. And then today's PFF NFL Daily, already up, the Justin Fields debacle. We broke it all down. And you wanted to pose the question, was Matt Nagy right? As the title of that podcast, that Justin Fields was not ready and he should not have been starting.
Yeah. We start with that game?
Yes. I want to start with that game because we do need to talk about the Browns side of it.
Yeah.
We discussed the Fields aspect of it on the PFF NFL Daily. So
we need to double cover that a little bit today. We can't go this show without talking about Fields.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. He ends up with a 49.3 passing grade. He had 68 passing yards.
Yeah.
67 yards lost on sacks.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, just a reminder, the way the NFL does passing yards, which is right. It's not the way college does it, where they deduct it from your rushing. The NFL says team passing yards are, your actual passing yards minus you take out sacks. So the Bears end up with 1 net passing yard as a team.
Yeah. As an offense, they ended up with 47 yards.
Yes.
They also had a 48-yard defensive pass interference penalty that moved them 48. This was catastrophic. This is the worst offense you're ever going to see. It was an absolute disaster. Now, the question is, where does the blame lie for that? And the answer is everywhere. Everything was bad.
It's everything. Yeah.
Justin Fields was bad. The play calling was bad. The offensive line was bad. Myles Garrett was freakish. And all of that came together in one big melting pot and meant the offense was never going anywhere in the entire game. Now, what was weird is that despite that, the Bears hung around for quite a while in this game. The Browns hadn't put them out of sight for a decent period. But, if you're looking at this, Fields certainly didn't help matters. I mean, there was a thought going into the game that, hey, look, he does seem to struggle with a couple of things, some pocket awareness, some holding onto the ball too long. That wasn't really a problem in this game. But the idea was maybe he's just so athletic and so sort of freakish as a talent that it doesn't matter. He'll be able to overcome all of that and make plays anyway, and just throw him out there because you've got a better shot of something good happening than Andy Dalton or Nick Foles or whatever it is. But that didn't happen. Fields just wasn't able to get anything done. Now, the Browns had a really good defensive game plan. They were ready for it. Anytime they tried to get Fields on the move, there was a dude waiting to just shut him down and put him back into the pocket.
Which is happening a lot in the NFL, by the way. The teams are saying, look, we want to stop the boot game.
And we've seen, this is that's been the direction of offense for a while. Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, this is the system that people are running. So even quarterbacks that haven't got freakish athleticism are running these things, Kirk Cousins of the world. And you've got this influx of athletic quarterbacks that are making it even more difficult. So if you're an NFL defense and you're not prepared to stop bootlegs and that kind of thing, I mean, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So the Browns were absolutely prepared for it, which made Justin Fields' life even harder. And then being trapped in the pocket, he just got murdered every single snap.
Yeah, so look, the next time somebody says, well, the athletic quarterback, he's going to save the offensive line. The athletic quarterback's going to make your offensive line look good. That is a lie. That is not true.
Well,
okay?
Yeah,
it's
certainly
just
not necessarily.
It's just not. You'll remember a couple plays, and Fields broke out of 1 or 2 sacks, and then probably got sacked later in the play.
At least twice he broke out of them only to get sacked anyway later, and worse.
You know who protects the offensive line? Quarterbacks getting rid of the ball and receivers getting open quickly. And you mentioned it is everybody's fault.
Yeah.
When you go through the 9 sacks, there's probably 2 or 3 where Fields could have thrown the ball. There's 2 or 3 where the offensive line gave him no time. There's a couple times the protection has no chance. Mm-hmm. You got the double A gap look. So you got 6 guys all up on the line of scrimmage and they're empty. Nobody's prepared to block that. Nobody's prepared with an outlet for Fields.
I don't want to take too hard of a victory lap because I was kind of on the fence in terms of I don't know whether Fields should play or not. But I've been trying for the last few weeks to make the case that, hey, look, maybe Matt Nagy actually knows something that you don't in terms of what this will look like if Justin Fields goes out there. This was the absolute worst case scenario of what could have happened if you put Justin Fields out there, which was nothing was functional and you can't play him right now. Like, you can't. Next week, they should start Nick Foles because if Justin Fields goes out there looking like this, you will damage Justin Fields. Like, this is a long-term damaging outlook for Justin Fields if this is how every game looks. So this idea of why would you not play Justin Fields? Matt Nagy, you're an idiot. This is why. Because he might not be ready to, handle the protections himself. There's at least a couple of plays now between this game and preseason where there's been a completely free rusher. We don't know if it's on Fields or not, but, maybe. And also, the offensive line is so bad that the guy just has no chance to get it done. There are a couple of plays in there, as you say, where Fields needs to put the ball in the air. Now, it's not to say there's an easy, there's a wide open dude that he just didn't hit. It's look, pressure is coming. You know it's coming. That guy is one-on-one in man coverage in a way that you need to give him and yourself a chance by putting that ball in the air.
In that point, remember how I think you were describing the Ohio State offense, right? We've said when Justin Fields throws the football, it's great. I mean, it's very accurate. He's got touch velocity. He's got everything you're looking for as a thrower of the football. But there were a lot of times in the Ohio State offense, whether you're blaming him for holding the ball or not, the offense was predicated on long developing routes. Let 2 guys who are probably going to be first-round picks work their thing, get open, and then hit them with an accurate throw. That's what he's used to doing. So it's this isn't a can he do it, can he not do it? Is his whole career over because that's the world we live in right now. The guy had 30 dropbacks. It must be over. It's just it could take time. It's okay to take time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to defer back to my point. The Bears, if Dalton was healthy and they started Fields, again, they don't need to make decisions to win a Week 3 game in 2021. They need to make decisions to make Justin Fields as good as possible. And despite some of the weird stuff Matt Nagy said throughout the week, I'm surprised how good Justin Fields looks at practice.
What is he doing?
It's a weird statements, but
somebody needs to stop him appearing in front of microphones.
But it's okay. It's okay to sit your first-round quarterback.
But now, what's happened is the thing that you said couldn't happen is where they are now.
I did not think it would be this bad.
Right. The question I posed to you a week ago, was, can you sit Justin Fields back down once you've put him in the starting lineup? And you said no. That's the situation you are now
I didn't think they'd have 1 net passing yard.
This is why I've been saying, look, I wouldn't put him out against the Rams. And if you're not going to put him out against the Rams, you're like, well, then the Browns are coming to town, and then there's a couple more defenses down the road. Yeah. So if you're not going to put him out there, you can't put him out because this is what's coming. Now, they did. They they crossed that barrier. The Rubicon has been crossed. Can you go back? Can you retreat north of the Rubicon back into Gaul? Because that's where they are. They put Justin Fields out there. It was a dumpster fire. And now they're faced with a decision of, well, okay, now I either have to play him again and risk permanently damaging our first-round pick, the quarterback of the future, the guy we expect to carry this franchise down the line, or I have to sit his ass back in the bench and put Nick Foles out there, and everybody looks like a moron.
That could be on the table.
I mean, I think
it
really
should could be on the table.
That's the problem I spoke about, which is everybody's going to look like an idiot if you do that.
So here's where I was wrong about this. I could see some of that stuff happening, right? Not 9 sacks, maybe 4 or 5, right? I was expecting that. But I also thought there'd be 3 or 4 plays where you're like, okay, there's the special.
Right.
Okay, right, there's the trade-off.
And I think there might have been, but Myles Garrett just went no. Like, there was a few plays in this game where any other pass rusher than Myles Garrett and Justin Fields escapes and runs 25 yards down the sideline. And Myles Garrett made Justin Fields look like a marginal NFL athlete in this game, which won't happen against pretty much anybody else. Like, Myles Garrett and Aaron Donald are the 2 players that might achieve that. Like, it was a staggeringly amazing performance from Garrett, you said on the Daily that Justin Fields essentially handed Myles Garrett the Defensive Player of the Year award. Maybe entirely true. I would say, though, that I think even if the Bears offense contributed to this, Myles Garrett earned every one of these big plays. Like, he was incredible in this game.
The thing about Garrett, it wasn't like he was just lined up over Jason Peters or Jermaine Ifedi, just over the tackle and just whooping them left and right. The Browns did a really good job. We had talked about the Bears pass rush grades, pass blocking grades coming into the game, and it was all on the interior where they were struggling. Jason Peters was doing a reasonable job. Jermaine Ifedi was doing a reasonable job until yesterday when he just couldn't block Jadeveon Clowney. But they were moving Garrett so it wasn't like Garrett just running around left tackle every time, sometimes. But he was beating guards. He was winning late in the down and tracking down fields with that athleticism. The other guy who looked incredibly athletic from a Browns perspective, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the rookie linebacker. This is one of those games. It doesn't always work out that way, but you talk about these athletic linebackers and like, here are all the things you can do with this guy. This entire season, JOK really looks like this twitched up next level linebacker. Even just the way he's in the run game trying to shed block, using his agility to avoid blocks. They're using him as a blitzer. He was in the passing lane a couple times, making a really good read on RPOs. So when the Bears actually hit the easy button, so to speak, run an RPO for a quick hitch or just run, it was difficult for them to connect on a 5-yard stick route. That's when the tight end, it's like first day one install. Tight end goes, turns around, 5 yards, turn around, or drift away from the coverage. It's the easiest pass. You see this start. It's like a drive starter for every team. The Bears couldn't even connect on that without difficulty.
JOK, I really love that he's just playing all out. Like, that idea of I would rather you make a mistake at 1,000,000 miles an hour than try and get it right at just 10% pace. Like,
can I just remember? I made a comp for him.
Okay, go.
My comp was Troy, not play, but play style, Troy Polamalu coming out because he flies around like that.
Like, him and Jamin Davis for the Washington football team are, vaguely comparable athletes. They're both pretty special, twitchy, impressive talents. Davis is playing way more passively right now than JOK is. JOK is just like, I'm going to go at 100 miles an hour at this, and if I get it wrong, so be it. But if I don't go at 100 miles an hour, I'm going to get it wrong anyway because an offensive lineman is going to envelop me and I'm dead in the play. That's what's happening to Jamin Davis way more than JOK. I think it's really encouraging actually for the Browns. He's going to make some mistakes, but that happens with all linebackers. The way he's playing, he's able to at least offset the mistakes with some major impact plays as well.
Appreciate everybody tuning in on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Somebody did mention on YouTube, hey, you guys say that sacks aren't predictive. Just to clarify that, for quarterbacks, they are. For quarterbacks, it is very consistent when you look at sack percentage. For defensive linemen, it's not. I mean, we could still say, hey, Clowney had a great game. And I'm saying he's wrapped up Defensive Player of the Year because they vote based off sacks. He's going to end up with 15 sacks now at the end of the year, so he's going to be in the conversation. That's all. OBJ came back for the Browns. So Baker Mayfield played a good, solid game. Some of his best throws were back shoulder stuff or along the sideline. But the key to this game from a game flow standpoint, the Browns had a huge drive just before the half that ended with Baker Mayfield to Austin Hooper up the seam, because the Bears defense had not been playing all that well this season. They played better against the Bengals in week 2, made some plays. The Bears defense did a pretty nice job. They got to Baker Mayfield with some pressure, had some sacks in there, or had him running for his life a couple times. But that drive just before the half was great. And then OBJ, I think, showed a lot of he had 4 first downs, and a lot of his good stuff on the outside. Also had some of the quirky stuff from a couple of years ago where he was adding a little extra to the route, almost forced Baker into an interception on a play along the sideline.
Yeah, this is an interesting run for Baker and OBJ because they're missing players. Like Jarvis Landry is down, so Odell Beckham isn't just back in being the number 1 receiver. He's like the only one that they have confidence in right now. Like Donovan Peoples-Jones made a couple of spectacular catches on the sideline. Very similar, actually, like back shoulder plays that made him sort of spin around, catch the ball with an adjustment, and then dot the feet down. So he looked pretty good. Rashad Higgins is productive when they throw him the ball, but they just don't use him that much. So it's OBJ. Like, he's the guy that got 10 targets in this game, way more than anybody else on that offense from a receiver perspective. So we're going to get to see what happens when he's the number 1 target. And as you said, most of it was good. And then there's that one play in there where it's like, what are you doing? Like, you telegraphed what was happening to the corner to hang your quarterback out to dry a little bit. Now, it didn't end up mattering, but those are the plays that can cause problems down the line. Ultimately, though, I think it's a net win, even if he's not, an incredible number 1, the best receiver in the NFL type of addition.
All right, go listen to the Daily. We've got more on Justin Fields. Impressive win for the Cleveland Browns. They deserve credit up front as well. They created mismatches and dominated the Bears' defensive line. They had a good game plan for Justin Fields as well. It made things difficult for them.
Early in the game, though, that offensive line was struggling. Like, early in the game, Chicago's defensive front was actually doing a really good job against the Browns' offensive line, which was one of the surprising parts of this game. It's like, if there's one thing you didn't expect to happen, it was that offensive line to suddenly start causing problems and the entire offense kind of grind down because of it. And then they started to get cooking and pulled away. But for a while, that was an issue, that this offensive line was actually getting controlled by Chicago.
All right, let's go to the Baltimore Ravens 19, Detroit Lions 17. Man, the Lions in 3 games now looked like they were going to get blown out by the 49ers. They're in it at the half against the Packers before the Packers pull away. And then in this one, again, another game where the Ravens get up early and the Lions just keep, they're just biting at your kneecaps, man. They're just hanging around. I'm going to call them feisty every single week now. Oh, God. The feisty Lions. And they had this game, man. So the Lions take the lead.
Yeah, so let's just put it in perspective. We are Detroit 17, Baltimore 16, with, 1 minute and 4 seconds left on the clock, with Baltimore getting the ball at their own 25-yard line. Touchback from the Lions. 1 minute and 4 to work on your own 25-yard line. Let's go. So then we get sack. Play number 1, sack. Play number 2, incomplete pass. Play number 3, sack. So now we're facing 4th and 19 from the Baltimore 16-yard line. Game's over. Got it.
Yes.
So fighting Dan Campbell's. Dan's about to get 3 giant truckloads of coffee the next morning. But no, didn't happen.
Dan Campbell's going to have to wait for his first win. 4th and 19. Lamar Jackson has about 6 seconds in a clean pocket. 3-man rush, does not even get close to home. It allows the deep crosser to get open. Lamar hits it, and the Ravens are in field goal range, which includes every inch of turf. Are they, though?
Yeah. The ball, they connect. They get 36 yards on 4th and 19. So they're now at the Detroit 48, which for most humans is not field goal range.
No.
But for Justin Tucker, let's wind one up.
Justin Tucker.
66 yards, NFL record. 66 yards, and it lands on the crossbar.
Yeah.
Lands on the crossbar and somehow bounces through. NFL record kick.
It was nuts.
Yesterday was one of the most absurd special teams days you're ever going to see. There was 2 attempts at an all-time long field goal record. Justin Tucker hit his. The Cardinals missed theirs short and ended up conceding a kick 6 on the play. Jags ran it all the way back and scored. The Washington kicker recovered his own kickoff when it wasn't an onside kick. Like, he kicked
That's
deep.
crazy.
He kicked deep. The ball hit a wall of wind, stopped, was like coming back from the kick return guy at the time where it was landing, and then like bounced back towards Washington and bounces around a bit, and the kicker ends up recovering it.
Yeah, man. It was very impressive. Justin Tucker, wow, saves the day for the Ravens. A weird game for the Ravens, too. Lamar has 6 big-time throws. I mean, he was getting the ball down the field, 2 of which were dropped by Marquise Brown. Really ugly.
So Marquise Brown
drops.
had 2 amazingly terrible drops, and then one that looked like it was an amazingly terrible drop, but the DB actually got a finger to it in the end zone. Great ball by Lamar. Again, like almost all of his best passes ended up falling incomplete. So incredible pass. What looked like it was going to be a touchdown pass for Lamar. DB gets a finger to it, just changes the flight of the ball enough so that Marquise Brown can't catch it in the end zone. But then 2 that were legitimately like stone-handed drops that you can't have those. Can't have those. If you're going to be the low-volume, big play threat within the offense, like I know you keep saying that, look, drops don't really matter and what's important is getting open. But if you're the guy that like is going to get 5 targets a game, but you're expected to catch 3 of those for touchdowns, you can't drop the ball. Like those, but I mean, those are plays you need to bring in.
They're just like sacks, though, is the point. They're bad plays, just like sacks are good plays. You're happy to have sacks. You don't want to have drops.
But I'm
just saying
more.
the next 5 times Marquise Brown has those same exact plays, he's probably going to catch the ball.
Yeah, but they matter more than DeAndre Hopkins dropping a few passes because most of his are shorter. They're like, there's ways to recover from those plays. Whereas when you schemed open the occasional deep shot based off everything else in the offense, and the receiver is the reason the deep shot doesn't work, that's like a bank-breaking play.
Yeah, but again, the alternative is to have a receiver who can't get open deep, which is just as bad.
Or get one that can get open deep and will catch the ball at the end of it.
Yeah, good luck finding those 3 guys.
There's more than 3 guys. How good do you think Marquise Brown is?
There's Deshaun Jackson. There's Tyreek Hill.
Not within this offense.
I'm just saying.
Like, give the
skill. I'm just saying the skill of getting open deep generally is more difficult to find.
Generally, but not within this offense. Like, you give Devin Duvernay those targets, and you end up with a win that's more comfortable.
He did catch that one nice touchdown. Lions are really stitching it together in the defensive backfield. Cornerbacks who played more than 20 snaps for them. So Amani Oruwariye played fine. Bobby Price played snaps. Just like A.J. Parker played 22 snaps. I mean, they are really stitching it together on the back end with youth. So as feisty as they are, they're only as feisty as Marquise Brown's drops. I mean, the coverage grades are not going to be great for the Lions. They look a lot worse because, the Ravens kind of helped keep them in the game because those 6 big-time throws from Lamar plus an interception, turnover-worthy play in there too. But, those plays are game changers. But the Ravens end up, they pull away with the win. And so after that disappointing week 1, the Ravens are back up to 2-1.
That was such a huge kick and win for them because, you come off this high of an unexpected win against Kansas City, which kind of, it didn't rescue your season, but we've talked before. They have a brutal run in the final 7 games. They obviously dropped one at the start they weren't expecting to. If they'd lost to the Chiefs as well, they would have been in a deep hole. They bounce back. They get that win. But then can you imagine if they dropped one the next week to Detroit? That would have been an absolute catastrophe for Baltimore. So it's like an absolute bullet dodge for them to sneak this win at the end and grab a late winner that really shouldn't have been.
I think it shows how tough the NFL is, though, right? I mean, you put everything into beating the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. Every game,
right. You switch off for half a second, the Detroit Lions nearly beat you.
There's not a Western Carolina FCS game, Urban. Like there's not a week off in the NFL, even with
everybody's Alabama, Steve.
The Detroit Lions. In week 3 of football, it's in the books. It's time to review the tape and get ready for week 4 with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. To kick off another action-packed week, DraftKings is giving all new customers $150 instantly when they bet $1 on any football game. Listen up. You don't want to miss it. Head to DraftKings Sportsbook. Download it now. Place a bet of $1 on any week 4 game to receive $150 in free bets instantly. If Sportsbook's not yet available in your state, DraftKings still has huge cash prizes up for grabs all season long with their daily fantasy contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code PFF to receive $150 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any football game. It's a no-brainer. It's promo code PFF this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT.
Nice.
Thank you.
Smooth.
Chargers, Chiefs.
Yeah.
Did you have something that you were going to say?
Yeah. You carry on. What happened?
Oh, no. You just looked like you were going to say something. I didn't know you're...
No.
Why are you writing? What are you writing?
Don't worry about it.
Chargers 30... What are you doing? This is a live podcast. Why are you... Oh. Chargers 30, Chiefs 24. What does that say? Jinx. Oh.
There we go. You know what you did. We are not allowed.
Back.
We can't mention the name of the player. Number 33 for the Chargers, whose name rhymes with Jerwin Dames. We can't mention him because if you mention his name, you will jinx him and he will get injured again. You did it twice. You did it twice. And whatever omnipotent being controls football injuries sent you a warning. He showed you what would happen if you mentioned his name. Jerwin Dames injured his shoulder.
Can we use Jerwin Dames?
And then came back.
Can we use his number? What are the rules going forward?
I mean, we've been referring to him as the player. I would accept any of the following: the player, number 33 for the Chargers, or the player who rhymes with Jerwin Dames.
Just saying, we have millions and millions of listeners, some of which are new. And if we keep referring to the player on the Chargers, we might confuse them a little bit.
The only problem with using the term Jerwin Dames is that eventually you're going to get it wrong and you're going to say his actual name, and that's an ACL.
The man played 72 snaps. He was fine.
You were warned.
Okay.
The gods sent you a warning. Don't anger them again.
Anyway, impressive win for the Chargers here. Chiefs fall to 1-2. I'll try not to mention the player's name, but we've got Justin Herbert going head-to-head with Patrick Mahomes. Head-to-head with Patrick Mahomes, man. But for the second straight week, a fourth-quarter interception by Mahomes.
Well, forget the turnovers across the board.
A lot of turnovers.
Like, the Chiefs had 3 of them in the first half. The late one that cost them the game, when they were trying to crawl back from the hole, they dug themselves. But, Kansas City was one of the best teams in the NFL last year at turning the ball over, as in not on offense. They had 15 of them, I think, all season long. They had, you can't turn the ball over this amount. Even with Mahomes and Kelsey and Hill, you have an incredible margin for error with that core group of talent. But that only extends so far. You can't give teams that amount of chances to pull away and to sneak this. Now, that being said, what was amazing to me in this game is that the Chargers still played like they were going up against the Chiefs. It wasn't like, hey, we've got all these lucky turnovers. We've got an incredible gift sent our way every couple of minutes. Let's sort of keep it conservative and grind it out. They were like, no, let's keep going. 4th downs. Let's hammer those. Let's keep acting as if we're down 15 and we need to come back. That, I think, demonstrates a massive degree of maturity and intelligence from Brandon Staley.
A couple things about the actual turnovers. Mahomes has 2 interceptions. The first one, no-look pass.
No-look interception.
Yes, no-look interception. Off his receiver's hands. And, of course, Asante Samuel, the ball bagged it.
Yeah.
It runs in the family.
Have we seriously checked that he's not just a clone? Because that's not legal, right? You can't just do that, clone people. Has somebody I don't know, checked on that? Because not only does he play exactly like his dad, but the ball would always find Asante Samuel Sr. as well. Even plays where he's not, he shouldn't be getting a pick, the ball just seems to end up in his hands. And then here we go. Now, it was an incredible catch, by the way. Diving, ridiculous to bring it in. But on the other hand,
it's not just being a ball magnet, it is that too.
Right, you need that to finish the play. But on the other hand, it was a play that hit his receiver in the hands and somehow ends up as a pick for Asante Samuel.
And then the second one, the one on 4th down, looked bad. It looked like Mahomes just chucked it up. Travis Kelce stopped his route, though. That is one where, as Mahomes is throwing it, Kelce's running. So neither one was really – I mean, Mahomes actually he fumbled at the 3. That was his worst play, really. He ended up getting the ball back. But both interceptions probably shouldn't have happened. But it is one of those things where last year Mahomes had incredible interception luck. Remember, there was a point where I was like, come on. I was lamenting what was going to happen when people cited his 25-1 touchdown to interception ratio that featured like 6 screens and like 5 dropped interceptions, right? And it was and everything was going right for Mahomes. And given his playing style, not that he doesn't put the ball in harm's way a ton as far as like actual turnover-worthy plays, but there are plays like this where it takes him and Kelce to be on the same page on the scramble drill, and Kelce just stops his route. Sometimes you're not on the same page. Mahomes throws it up. You would think Mahomes would have more interceptions just because these plays happen, because of this playing style. Anyway, it came back to bite yesterday. The Chargers took advantage. They did a really nice job. Herbert continues to just make throw after throw after throw.
Yeah.
It's not just big-time throws. I mean, we always talk about his arm strength and the carry on it, but it's just a series of move the chains, move the chains, move the chains. And the Chiefs were doing that too, by the way. There was a point where the Chiefs had like 1 million first downs, and the Chargers were playing that too high, inviting the Chiefs to run and to take the underneath stuff. Romo did a pretty good job of highlighting that. But again, the Chargers, for the third, let me just sum it up this way. I'm not concerned about the Chiefs because I don't overreact to this stuff. In 3 straight weeks, they played the Browns, and we could just replay what we talked about in week 1. The Browns are going for every 4th and 3. They're trying to beat the Chiefs. They're playing underdog. The Browns did it in week 1. The Ravens did it in week 2. And then the Chargers in week 3. Now looking at it, it's a pretty tough schedule that the Chiefs have started with.
Well, pretty tough schedule. That is also an interesting thing, though. Is every game going to be like that, where the team that faces the Chiefs is going to become that progressive, smart, analytically driven, woke team that's going for all the 4th downs and like stealing the edges that way? Or did they just face 3 of the most progressive teams in the NFL in terms of those 4th down decisions? Because like despite the 1 million turnovers, the Chiefs ended up taking the lead in this game with like 7 minutes to go in the 4th quarter. They got back to 24-21, took the lead. The Chargers drive down, tie it up. So now we're 24-24. Then it's 3 and out. But then, what are we, 4th and 4. The Chargers are going to go for it. False start penalty. This is 4th and 4, like from Kansas City's 30, right? False start. Back to the 35. You're like, oh, well, that's that gun. We'll kick the field goal and we'll take the lead. No, 4th and 9. We're going for it again.
Still go for it.
Like, this is the kind of thing that most teams would not do in a normal week. But when you're facing the Chiefs, at least the first 3 teams they've played, Cleveland, Baltimore, and the Los Angeles Chargers, have all loaded up with those kinds of plays and gone, this is what it takes to beat Kansas City. Now, is everybody going to do that? Or were they just 3 teams that understand that's what you need to do? That's like an interesting dynamic. Because
that'll be fascinating to see.
Because that puts the Chiefs at like a disadvantage relative to everybody else in the NFL. Because most teams are not doing that against, Minnesota in a random game in October. It's just not happening. But against the Chiefs, this might be every week is what they're facing.
I'm going to continue to do this as long as we're podcasting here. The Chiefs Patriots dynamic, right? The Chiefs dynasty or supposed dynasty versus the Patriots dynasty. And the Patriots every now and again would drop a game to a team that they shouldn't have, and you looked back at that team and it was like, okay, well they were going for it on 4th down, or they had 4 or 5 trick plays, or the Patriots took other teams' best shots for the better part of 20 years, right? The Chiefs are going to get these teams their best shots. Now, again, they faced the Browns, who we think are one of the best teams in the NFL, the Ravens, who were a little banged up, but we think are one of the best teams in the NFL, and the Chargers, who we had optimism that they'd be one of the better teams in the NFL, with Brandon Staley coming in to help fix that defense, with a new offensive line, and with Justin Herbert with such an impressive rookie season that he's obviously built upon here. So
the only difference I think between the Chiefs and the Patriots in that regard is that the Chiefs are it's like a force multiplier. It's like a double whammy because the Chiefs are taking everybody's best shot in terms of like every individual player, knowing that this is their Super Bowl, but they're also playing at a time when teams are making smarter decisions in game and going for it on those fourth down plays and doing the stuff that doesn't require any extra effort, but just involves like making a call where the numbers say make this call.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Most of the time, the Patriots weren't dealing with that because the league just wasn't there yet. Like, you know, we were still in this sort of caveman thinking of, well, of course you punt the ball away. This is just the way you play football. Right. Now teams are going, you know what, it isn't. You actually go for those kicks. One last point on this game, by the way. Thoughts out to Andy Reid, who felt ill after the game. There's, I think, still very little in terms of information on that, but the Chiefs tweeted that Andy Reid felt ill at the conclusion of the game and was evaluated by the medical staff, taken to hospital as a precaution, supposedly doing well, resting, stable condition, all those kinds of things. So hopefully Andy Reid bounces back and it's nothing serious.
Ian Rappaport, who is on our new rival, by the way, Good Morning Football.
New rival?
We're going head-to-head. 7 a.m. We both start at the same time.
Head-to-head every Monday.
Yeah. So if you're a split screen, you could go split screen. You could watch them and watch us. But we're going head-to-head with Good Morning Football.
Okay.
So usually you don't mention the rivals you're head-to-head with.
Yeah.
But he says Chiefs coach Andy Reid is in stable condition after being taken to the hospital as precaution last night. That's the stable condition is the update. We don't know much else, but yes. Right. Best wishes certainly to Andy Reid in this one. So the Chiefs fall to 1-2. They're in last place.
Yeah.
In the AFC West. From a Chargers perspective, they're now 2-1, and we're talking, you know, a heartbreaking loss to the Cowboys away. Man, they have those procedure penalties though.
They tried to charge this one away as well.
4th and 1 and false starts and
missing
all that
the
stuff.
Extra point.
Yes.
Old Chekhov's extra point again felt like it was rising its
so
ugly head.
That's the other thing too. So the Chargers have about a minute left, and they're driving and they score it, and they keep throwing it, right? They score a touchdown. They could have run the clock and kicked a last-second field goal to win it. They did risk it a little bit, right?
Yeah, instead scored a touchdown. Now, that being said, look, the kicker missed the extra point, so how confident can you be that he was going to nail the kick in the first place?
Well, the field goal would have been closer than the extra point.
Yeah, but like if you can't trust a kicker to make an extra point, you probably can't trust a kicker to kick.
It did look like one of those things. Like you just can't make mistakes against Mahomes and the Chiefs or Aaron Rodgers or Brady and all that stuff.
At least though
they missed the field goal and they give Mahomes about 45, 50 seconds, whatever it was, right?
32.
It was 32.
So that I think is significant, right? Like look, last night you give Rodgers the ball with 30-something seconds, but he only has to get it in field goal range.
Right.
Here, because you scored the touchdown, at the very minimum, you are saying, okay, you need to go the whole length of the field in 32 seconds. Now, look, it's Mahomes and the Chiefs, so it's eminently possible. But I don't think that's as bad as some people were making it out to be. And I think the difference between like a minute and 32 seconds when you have to go the length of the field for the touchdown is pretty significant.
Big game for Mike Williams. He had 2 touchdowns in this one, including that the game winner. The Chiefs, from a Chargers perspective, a lot of good things happen. And when you talk about the decision-making, the way Herbert's playing, and to me, the most impressive thing about Herbert now from college, accuracy is a little bit better and all that stuff, but the late-game management and things he wasn't always doing at Oregon, showing up on the field. Like that final drive against Washington in Week 1 and all of his work in the fourth quarter in this one. Very impressive. 3 weeks
into the season, and this division is upside down.
Yeah.
From your preseason predictions, I would have thought let's say there would have been a spectrum of opinions, but I would say the consensus or the closest amalgam of all of those would be Chiefs number 1, Chargers number 2, Broncos number 3, Raiders number 4, right?
Yeah.
It's the other way around now. Raiders sit atop the division at 3-0. Okay, it's a tie with Denver.
As do the Broncos, yep.
Yeah, Denver 3-0, but behind on whatever tiebreaker that is right now. And then the Chargers and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
It's the upside down, Steve. It's a mad world we live in.
Are you ready to? Do you still think the Chiefs are the best team in the division?
Yeah.
So by the end of power rankings are going to come out all across the internet landscape this week.
Yeah.
Do they go the 3-0 Broncos and Raiders or higher than the Chiefs, or the Chiefs going to be like 5th on teams?
Rankings? Most people's power rankings will have the Chiefs below other teams in that division, and that's potentially.
Power rankings are very important, Sam. This is important stuff here.
Ours, because they're data driven, probably won't
take into consideration far more than just
whereas most people's are most people's power rankings essentially are a slight rejigging of the NFL standings.
Yeah.
Which is always seems
I'll
like
just put this 2-1 team over this 3-0 team, and that's it.
But ultimately, it's like if you gave every one of these teams a game on a neutral field tomorrow, who's going to win? And I think you would still bank on the Chiefs to beat most teams in the NFL on any given week.
I think the Chiefs still need that third option, man. I think they did a pretty good job with Demarcus Robinson on Sunday night against the Ravens, but Mecole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, Byron Pringle had a big drop. Man, they could really use a third option when Kelsey and Tyreek are taken away on plays. And Mahomes has another one of those games where I don't think he was trying to win from the pocket enough. Wasn't feeling comfortable in the pocket.
They did a very good job on defense of executing that Raiders game plan that was difficult to pin down to exactly what it was, but they're very good at sort of giving him enough time and space to start doing something crazy, and then the second he does, immediately collapse in on him from all angles. They were very good at doing that. They
were closing in the escape route as much as possible.
The Raiders have done the best job of that of any team I've seen. Like obviously in the Super Bowl, the Bucs just overwhelmed the offensive line. It wasn't the same thing. But the Raiders have done a really good job of that as like a down-to-down game plan, and the Chargers certainly looked like they were replicating it in that game.
Joey Bosa with a big game, rushing off the edge for the Chargers. So the Chargers move to 2-1 in the AFC West. Let's go Falcons-Giants for a little bit here. Giants fall to 0-3. Falcons get their first win for Arthur Smith, 17-12. Looked like the Giants had this game in hand.
Yes.
For most of the game. Dropped pick by Adoree Jackson. Ends up being a game changer. Yeah, pretty important. Nothing too exciting with each team here. What are your thoughts on this one?
It seemed for a while. I was trying to find a way for this game to end like 8-8 and just tie, and neither of these teams win. There were two winless teams. Neither of them looked like they deserved to win a game. So I was like, how can we get this game to tie and everyone just go home miserable at 0 or 0-2?
You're a big fan of ties in general.
Well, I just think if a game is going to come out with a tie, this is the one that it should have been. You have to see this as a massive dropped opportunity for the Giants, who should be the better team of the two. The Falcons, if you gave Kyle Pitts, just made him change number. Say you're no longer number 8. That was a silly number for a tight end to wear anyway. You're going to be number 11, and you're going to play the X-wide receiver role.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to tell Matt Ryan that Julio came back.
Oh, I understand what you're saying.
If you just told him that and made Kyle Pitts play the Julio Jones role, this offense would be better. Instead, they have him playing tight end, and the guy's getting like 4 targets in a game, most of them coming late, only 3 of which counted. Like one was a no play. Like, what are you doing? You drafted this guy at the top of the draft. He is a unicorn, a freakish athlete, the likes of which has never been seen in the NFL. Use him. The last freakish athlete you had, the likes of whom the NFL hasn't really seen that much of, is a 10,000-yard career receiver whose absence is now being felt and crippling your offense. So use this guy. Okay, he's not Julio Jones, but I honestly think Kyle Pitts playing that role would do a significantly better job than he is being wasted at tight end right now.
The Falcons are the only team in the NFL to not complete a 20-plus yard pass in the air.
Despite having Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts on the offense.
Yeah. I mean, look, Julio's having his own issues in Tennessee as far as health and various things like that, but we just saw Matt Ryan spend all but, 3 years of his career with Julio Jones. The on-off splits with Julio, not great. You always use the term force multiplier of having Julio. I do believe there's 4 or 5 receivers in the NFL that have massive trickle down to the rest of their offense. Julio's one of those guys. I mean, again, if you came into the season with Julio, if say he was healthy, and Ridley's your 2, and then you have Pitts it's so different. Now there's so much more pressure on Calvin Ridley. And look, Matt Ryan, this is a rough stretch for him. He's got 3 straight game grades under 62, 3 turnover-worthy plays, a fumble in the pocket, but also the one that we talked about, that was just overthrowing Pitts in the end zone, dropped interception while they're down 7 in the fourth quarter. Matt Ryan has hit this phase in his career over the last couple of years where any kind of pressure is just not – he's just not comfortable under pressure, and he's just heaving it off his back foot. A lot of ugly in Atlanta. All that said, they won the game. They came back to win the game.
Yeah. You drafted Kyle Pitts number 4 overall, and I think that was the right decision. And it was one of the ones that, we predicted quite a way out that this is the move they should make. If you're planning on just plugging him in as tight end Kyle Pitts, that's a wasted pick. That's a bad pick. The only reason, or the only way Kyle Pitts is worth number 4 overall is if you're planning on using him to the fullest extent of his capabilities, which involves playing him at wide receiver for at least a good portion of the time and tapping into the fact that he can be a legitimate number 1 wideout in addition to being one of the best tight ends in the NFL. They're not doing that right now, and they're completely wasting the rookie season of the guy.
They moved him around a little bit.
Yeah, but not like they're moving. It's like the wide receiver moving into the backfield thing. They're doing it from the wrong direction. It's
you want
like,
to just
let's take
him?
a tight end and let's split him out every now and again. You need to treat this guy like he's your number 1 wide receiver that can move all over the formation, and they're not doing that.
On the other side with the Giants, Daniel Jones played another pretty solid game. And, I think, man, he's having a pretty good 3 games. But the Giants, they lose the heartbreaker to Washington in week 2. Another heartbreaker right here. Daniel Jones did have another fumble in the pocket. That's what he had been avoiding through 2 weeks. Didn't really come back to bite a ton. They recovered it, right? Yeah. But, man, did they recover? I'm looking at it. What do you think of the Giants now?
I don't understand.
They're very close to being 2-1. Does that change your perception of the Giants, or they're just finding ways to lose?
Yeah, this was a big loss for them. I mean, they had a chance to. I think they're widely seen as the 4th best team in that division, but that division's probably not one where the team in the lead is going to streak off into the distance and just wrap it up by mid-December. They are probably going to have they probably would have a shot in this division late on if they can just hang around and win the games they're supposed to win and then maybe catch a break and beat some of the teams in their division. This was a big game for them to be able to do that, and they dropped one they should have had. I don't understand how Daniel Jones has become like one of the most dynamic rushing threats in the NFL at the quarterback position.
Oh, yeah, right.
He
did.
Trucked Grady Jarrett at the goal line. Grady Jarrett's a defensive tackle, and he just ran over him. And not only that, right, but even if you forget the fact that he ran over a defensive tackle on his way in for the 2-point conversion, they went empty and had him run like a QB power play.
He can run, man. He's got power. I don't know when that happened either.
How? There's nothing in his measurable profile that says this is going to be like.
He ran fast.
He ran like a 4.7.
He ran fast. Yeah, like 230. He's a big dude.
221 was his listed weight, and he ran a 4.7. That's like Mac Jones.
The offensive line played a much better game. Nate Solder, Ben Bredesen, they gave up some pressure, but Billy Price had a good game. Andrew Thomas had a good game. Now it's the Falcons pass rush. Mm-hmm. But just saying, that was better. Again, I don't mean to completely pick on the Falcons, but Matt Ryan under pressure. 23.6 PFF grade, 13 dropbacks, 3 turnover-worthy plays. So fumble and then 2 back foot heaves into coverage. But the Falcons escape. They move to 1-2. I'm not fired up about either team still.
No.
And Giants, again, I think what gave the Giants a shot is the depth in their secondary. And they didn't get great play across the board from James Bradbury and others back there. I thought that would give the Giants a better shot this year.
Yeah, I don't think this game really changes anything from an Atlanta perspective. They got to win. They weren't really expected to win. They didn't look good doing it, and they'll probably still be bad. From the Giants' perspective, I think it changes something in terms of like this was a bad loss. You needed this win. There are certain teams that if you're going to be anything in a season, you have to take care of, and they didn't. They had a chance to do it. They dropped their opportunity. They messed it up, and the Giants lose a game they shouldn't have and now are in a much deeper hole within their own division than they should have been.
All right, speaking of taking care of business, the Arizona Cardinals moved to 3-0, defeat the Jacksonville Jaguars 31-19. It did get close for a while after the kick 6. So you mentioned earlier was 109? Did he get 109?
Yeah, 109 ties for the longest play in NFL history, which is a bunch of plays that started 9 yards deep in the end zone because you can't get any longer than that.
So kick 6, keeps the Jags
68-yard
in it.
Field goal attempt, which is vaguely madness, because this is what can happen if you do that.
By the way, domes matter. Again, not to take anything away from Justin Tucker's 66-yarder, but lining up for a 66-yarder or a 68-yarder, there is a difference doing it on turf versus doing it on grass, doing it in a dome in a controlled environment versus doing it outside. So a 68-yarder outdoors in Jacksonville is risky.
Just before the half, no time left on the clock. Jackson, it's a tie game, right? Arizona decides to take a 68-yard shot to go into the half, 3 points up. Miss it short because it's a 68-yard attempt. And the problem with those plays, because a lot of times people are like, well, why would you not go for the NFL record? Like, kickers are able to make 70-yard kicks, etc. Why not give it a shot? The reason you don't is because if you miss it short, that guy's coming back, and it's not like a kickoff where you have a bunch of fast, small guys who can tackle him. Yeah. You have like an offensive line out there. So there's like 4 guys on the field who have any realistic shot of bringing this guy down and stopping him getting into the end zone. And if those guys don't make the play, it's a touchdown the other way. It's a 10-point swing against you if you miss this short. And that's exactly what happened.
I mean, it's really just a 7-point swing. You're not going to kick the field goal.
But they have, there's a bunch of kickers in the NFL that have the leg to make a 68-yard field goal. The problem is it's not worth. No, there's a line in their way which causes problems as well. But this is the risk. It isn't it's not a riskless proposition. There's a significant downside to not making that kick.
The play of the game, however, Jaguars have the lead. It's a late third quarter flea flicker, and Trevor Lawrence throws it late and off balance. And look, Byron Murphy's playing some pretty good football. Maybe gifted a pick six. Nice play by Byron Murphy, but it's a pick six on the flea flicker. Trevor Lawrence with 2 pretty bad throws into coverage again, another fumble as well, but late passes outside the numbers. Ugh, Trevor. But there's still, the touchdown that he threw, the corner route was oh my gosh, the talent is unbelievable. He's got it. It's just the other, 40 or 50 plays every week.
Yeah, and even outside of the other 40 or 50, the sheer volume of turnover-worthy plays at this point is getting out of control. I mean, he's averaging 3 a game. In fact, he's averaging more than 3 a game, I think. It's kind of nuts. Lawrence has some of the worst plays in the NFL this season, and quite a lot of the worst plays in the NFL this season. Now, it's not all of his fault. The offense, I don't think, is helping him out. He's not being given a ton of layups to deal with. And in fact, actually, the system, I think, is actually magnifying some of his problems.
Yeah.
The thing you keep talking about is he's late on pretty much everything. If you're late and he has one of the highest average depth of target in the NFL, you're late on stuff down the field, which means by the time you get the ball there, the window is closed.
Margin of error is small.
Right. The window is closed, and the guy on your team you were trying to throw the ball to is now behind a guy on their team who's catching the ball. And that's what's happening to Lawrence time after time after time. If you're going to be late, at least be late on something short where there's a bigger margin for error. And if you're late, it just means that the guy's not got space to run. Essentially what you're doing, if you're late on a 5-yard pass, you're killing the opportunity for yards after the catch, which is not good, but it's not catastrophic. If you're late on something 15 yards downfield, you turned what could have been a completion into an interception, and it's a disaster.
On the other side, Arizona, another pretty efficient day. Offensively, you get A.J. Green and Christian Kirk going over 100 yards. DeAndre Hopkins was a game-time decision, was not a big part of the game, but I think once again Arizona shows they've got other options. Christian Kirk's having a really nice year after moving him to the slot. Kyler was hardly missed any throws, but had another bad interception in there too. He's got to continue to just cut down on those turnovers. But again, Arizona, they look really good right now, man.
Yeah.
They look good, and even with the scare, again, it's tough to go cross country and win NFL football games and the whole thing. So credit the Cardinals. Right there, they'll be right there in the mix, and it's why I don't completely. I think the Rams are going to lose some games. As great as they looked yesterday, because the Cardinals are probably going to. Cardinals have a chance to take one. The Seahawks are going to be tough. The Niners are still going to be tough. This West, I think is as good as I thought they were coming in, even if with Seattle disappointing so far.
It might be better. I mean, if Arizona is better than people thought they were heading into the season. You're right. This was a game where all of the external stuff that you don't really think about most of the time, cross-country travel, playing outdoors, all these kinds of weird, small, tiny things, but that actually make a real difference to games. We're all going against Arizona this week. This was one of those, I don't want to say it was a trap game because they still should have won, but this is the kind of game that you could lose, and then afterwards, with the benefit of hindsight, start factoring in that stuff. And
like,
saying,
oh yeah, we should have known that.
Yeah. And Arizona didn't. Like they wobbled. They gave the kick six away. They gave Jacksonville a really good chance to do that, and then they rolled in the second half and overcame that anyway, and now get to come back and be like, okay, we got through that one, we got the win, and now we're in a really good place, or a really good spot within the division.
Buffalo Bills 43, Washington Football Team 21. Taylor Heineke had some couple rough interceptions in there against the Bills. Bills defense, once again, I think they played a really good game. And then Josh Allen. I was going to wear my Josh Allen jersey again. It was going to be my Monday morning jersey. But Allen, man, he was really good. It was his best game of the season by far. After we posed the question, did he completely regress? No, he looked good. Bunch of big-time throws, special throws, laser beams all over the place. Football team's defense is starting to become a bit of a concern after they were top 3 unit last year.
They're, I think, showing how important strength of competition is to a defense. Forget everything else. But, if you look at the schedule of quarterbacks they had last year, it was very, very weak. And this year, it's very, very strong. So they've gone from one end of the spectrum to the other in terms of the teams that they're facing, and it's just causing them some problems. Taylor Heineke, obviously this was his worst game, but then we're dealing with a sample size of 3. He really is just Fitzpatrick. He's just younger, more agile Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
And this was like the bad Fitzpatrick, where those games show up and he's just trying to do too much.
He had another one of those scrambles for a touchdown where it's like, wow, pretty impressive, getting to the corner, diving for the pylon. He did that against the Bucs in the playoffs last year. But yeah, I think, once again, I mentioned last week the Bills have a well-rounded team where they can win even when Josh Allen's not at his best. And, other than they gave up a couple big plays defensively where the tackling was ugly, but defense is playing a lot better, I think, this year than last year in Buffalo. But when Allen is on like this, outside of a couple misses, it was just, moving the chains, first down after first down. But when you get it, scrambling outside the pocket for that first touchdown, I think it was the first touchdown to Emmanuel Sanders, the back shoulder to the tight end, Dawson?
Knox.
Dawson Knox. I'm like, oh my gosh, losing my mind here. Some special throws in there from Josh Allen. So when he's on his game and the defense is playing pretty well, this is the Bills team that we expected.
This was the game that I think is relevant to what you were saying last week, which is it's a good thing that Josh Allen hasn't played that well yet, because the Bills are still rolling. They're beating teams. They're in good position. They're succeeding. And if Josh Allen goes back to being where he was last year, that gives them this incredible ceiling of being able to beat anybody. Allen played a lot better in this game, but even this wasn't where he was last year. There were more mistakes in this game than you typically saw from him a season ago. And again, there's more room to go. We know Allen could be better than this, and he was pretty good in this game. And the rest of the team was really good. So suddenly, again, that gives Buffalo just such a high ceiling in terms of how good this team can be, which is great when you get to the playoffs and you're going to have to face Kansas City and all those kinds of things. Heineke, so his first interception, he made the fatal mistake of assuming that his receiver, who was waving at him, I'm open, I'm open. He didn't check that he was open. He was just like, he's got his hand up. He must be open. Let's throw him the ball. Yeah. Now, it was Terry McLaurin, and I would generally give Terry McLaurin the benefit of the doubt. But McLaurin's waving because he's just sunk beyond his guy, not knowing that there's a dude behind him waiting for it. And Heineke just sees the waving arm, throws the ball in his direction, and the guy behind him just jumps in front, picks it off. The turnover-worthy play, or the turnover that was the worst, though, was the third one, where he was, behind in the game, third quarter, trying to make something happen, and just fires it into triple coverage. You're like, that's full Fitzpatrick right there. That's the play.
Just trying to make something happen, man.
That's the play that you can never get out of Ryan Fitzpatrick, and maybe don't want to, but when it happens and you're just like, you can't do those. Can't. No.
Josh Allen ends up with 4 touchdowns, no picks. He did try to throw one late in the fourth quarter. Also ran for one. The other part of this is Cole Beasley catches 11 passes, mostly underneath stuff. Emmanuel Sanders was fantastic. He had 94 yards. Stephon Diggs catches 6 for 62. Yeah, the Dawson Knox touchdown, he had 49 yards. And the backs caught a couple passes. The balance, man. Balance for me is hitting a whole bunch of different receivers, right? And then, they did run the ball all right at times. So, again, I think the Bills are who we thought they were. And I think, based off, we'll talk about the Steelers now, losing to the Cincinnati Bengals, I think we might look back at the Bills' loss to the Steelers in week 1. And we were like, hey, maybe the Steelers are, they got this good defense again, and they beat the Bills, and Bengals go to Pittsburgh. I know Pittsburgh's banged up. Bengals win 24-10. But to wrap up the Bills, they moved to 2-1. They left. They might be regretting that Pittsburgh game in week 1. But the Steelers and Big Ben not looking good. Bengals win 24-10.
Yes.
In this one.
The biggest weird thing from this game is Pittsburgh's defense got no kind of pressure on Joe Burrow at all.
Is TJ Watt that important?
I mean, that's the obvious question that comes from this, right? Burrow got rid of the ball pretty quickly, but not so quickly that it explains a complete absence of pressure. 2.4 seconds on average was how fast Burrow was getting rid of the ball. Like, he didn't pass that much because this is the way of the game. They were never in a hole. So he had 18 pass attempts, right? So there wasn't a ton of opportunity to pressure him either. But of 18 dropbacks, 19 dropbacks, 18 pass attempts, he was pressured twice.
Yeah, that was not what we expected.
Like,
whether Watt's in there or not.
They pressured Josh Allen was 45% of the time in week 1. Like, this is a defense that typically lives in that 45% pressure rate area. Now, okay, that's with TJ Watt, who's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. But we've been saying, look, Cameron Hayward wins one-on-ones consistently. Melvin Ingram showing up adds to that pass rush and makes them a really well-rounded group. Where was it? Those guys had one pressure each. Cameron Hayward won. Melvin Ingram won.
The other, again, I do Pittsburgh radio once a week, and after week 1, when Minkah Fitzpatrick made a couple flash plays all over the field, and they looked exciting. Another rough game for him. Minkah is playing a different role. They're moving him around, which is, it's more challenging when you do that. I think, Budda Baker is a guy for the Cardinals who's done that through the years. I think Budda Baker has elements where he plays like this elite safety, but because his role is so challenging, you don't always see it. Minkah is playing a challenging role, but he over-pursued on one of the Bengals' touchdowns, over-pursued on another first down. He did drop an interception. He almost had it, ended up being picked. But this new Steelers defense now, I don't know if I'm starting to question it or if it's just they need TJ Watt to make it happen, right? So if you're going to go from blitzing 50% of the time and you're going to try to tap into Minkah Fitzpatrick being this do-it-all safety, and he's actually just out of position a lot of the times, it's just not looking great over there. And it's not the defense that lost this game for the Steelers, but it's just a different look over there. And I don't know if it's after it worked in week 1, it hasn't worked these last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it didn't lose them the game, but it didn't help either. They blitzed 6 times, so like a third of the dropbacks. I mean,
it's official. It's not Blitzburg anymore. They're playing a lot of zone. It's a lot of 4-man rush. And when it is TJ Watt and Melvin Ingram and Alex Highsmith and they're all healthy and out there, yeah, that's not bad. And Cameron Hayward, it's not a bad strategy. But when you don't have Watt or Highsmith, I don't know. Maybe they should have adjusted.
Yeah. So is Ben Roethlisberger cooked?
So let's go to that.
Now, first point. He didn't play well. On the other hand, he had 10 passes dropped. That's a lot.
That's incredible.
Now,
that was last year's
58 pass
Steelers.
attempts, so it's not as high a percentage as it would be for a lot of games, but that's still a crap load of passes hitting the ground.
Yeah, it is. He goes 38 for 58 for 318. That's 5.5 yards per attempt. Now, of course, if you just add 10 drops in there,
yeah,
yards per attempt are going to go up to like 7 and 7.5, whatever
normal.
it is. Right. So it's not atrocious. I don't like this whole fall off a cliff and cooked and all that stuff. Big Ben clearly, though, needs a pristine situation. Pristine. Everything's just odd there. I mean, Najee Harris,
19 targets.
19 targets. He had 14 catches and 14 carries, first-round running back. They still can't run at all.
Yeah.
So say what you want
The
about
offensive line is still bad.
the offensive line is still bad. Roethlisberger that probably needs a bit of a run game. Like if the Steelers need to have a more efficient run game, I still think there's a world. I mean, they tried it. Chase Claypool had 15 targets. He caught 9 for 96. I'm throwing it to him the whole time. But they had no Deontay Johnson. They did not have, throwing contested catches to Ray McLeod. Not going to win you a whole lot.
Roethlisberger is Phillip Rivers now, which is he's reached the point in his career where he needs a really, really good situation around him to be pretty good. Like he's not completely done, but he needs a good offensive line. He needs a running game. He needs good receivers that can win on their own. And right now, I don't know that he has any of those. He certainly doesn't have 2 of the 3. But he didn't, like his worst, he had one catastrophic play, which is just, I don't know why you didn't see him. The dude's in white and orange right in front of him.
The linebacker.
But he threw the ball right to a linebacker, which was pretty bad. Then missed the tackle on the linebacker to make it even worse. But it's another one of those situations where it isn't just him, but he's going to take all the blame. But like Pittsburgh's play calling isn't great. They threw a dump off to Najee Harris in the flat on 4th and 10.
Game on the line. 4th and 10.
Yeah, that's not good. I mean, how did you expect that to go?
Yeah, you can't just throw a swing pass.
Look,
do it.
There are plays on 4th and 10 where you can throw it short of the sticks and expect the player to get the yardage, right? Whatever the play design is, springing him into space, something about it. Like there's ways of generating yards after catch. Just throwing an aimless swing into the flat and saying, Najee, you got 10 yards to find here. Good luck. Is just not going to work.
Yeah, man. The thing that I think is missing with Roethlisberger, he's not moving well. I mean, when you talk about, again, cooked, I do picture 2015 Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Even cooked, I was still trying to make excuses for Peyton because he threw so many passes into coverage that year. But there were certain games where his anticipation would take over and he'd throw one end over end and it would get there. And he wasn't good, but there were a couple games where he was and he could make do. I don't think Big Ben's probably creeping up toward that, but the problem with Big Ben is what made him special was also 4, 5, 6 plays per game where he did special things, where he just outside the pocket and off structure. I don't think we're seeing many of those. I don't think that's going to be a part of his game going forward. So now if Big Ben has been relegated to game manager and dink and dunk guy and just win from the pocket, he immediately loses some of his luster unless he could just win with his brain over and over again. And if you do that, you can't throw the ball to a linebacker on the scramble drill.
Yeah. I think Roethlisberger is a quarterback that was always probably likely to age badly in terms of when he starts to lose something physically. Like when you think about Roethlisberger in his career, you imagine a guy, making a play with 3 linebackers draped all over him in the pocket and just sort of, struggling out of that and somehow making something work anyway. When you're like physically old, busted, and can't really move around anymore, that's just not going to work. And you don't have the arm to get it to where it needs to go after you've somehow escaped from all that misery in the pocket. And so you end up just sort of waddling into the flat and throwing the ball at a linebacker. Like he needs to change his game to still be viable to like a classic old school pocket passer where the ball is just out of his hands quickly, but you're also taking shots deep down the field, which is a really hard thing to do in today's NFL because defenses are good at that. Like the players that are thriving now are the ones that can bring a little something on top of that to the table. And he's now in this situation where he can't. So that's where you come back to the Phillip Rivers thing. You need a rock-solid offensive line that can protect him in there. You need a run game so that he doesn't have to do it all himself. And you need receivers that can turn some of these nothing passes into something more spectacular. So, yeah, I think the Steelers' offense is not in good shape whatsoever. And if the defense doesn't play like it did week 1 and it did last season, the Steelers might suck. They might suck as much as everybody thought they would in the offseason, which we then reversed after week 1.
The thing is, so Roethlisberger did attempt 15 passes beyond 10 yards. That's not a ton when you drop back 50 times. The 20-plus yard throws, though, those are the ones where I'm saying, like, just live with the – you might have a game where you only score 10 just like this, but you're doing that anyway, right? I mean, you're already struggling offensively. Just keep trying to throw the ball down the field. Big Ben, 15 passes beyond 10 yards. 2 of them are dropped. He actually graded okay on those passes. The Steelers need to live with the volatility. They can't. Big Ben is. They tried to do the dink and dunk game last year, man. It's not going to work. You can't move the ball. Just live with it. You might score 3 points one game. You might score 30, but it's like your only chance here is throwing the ball down the field. Of all those 50-something dropbacks, 5 were beyond 20 yards. He goes 1 for 5 for 29 with a big-time throw. Make that 15. I mean, and I know it sounds simple, and it's ridiculous, but just chuck it up, man. Got to be aggressive. You can't run the ball. You can't. Your short pass game is terrible. And I know you can't protect Ben. Okay, I don't have good answers here.
Yeah, hashtag just chuck it up. Is
just
your
chuck it up.
Your game plan for this?
How fascinating. So the Bengals defensive line did a pretty nice job. They got after Big Ben, or at least on the interior, a couple spots there. How fascinating are they? Joe Burrow throws the ball 18 times. Again, like another game where it's like
that's what they want to do. It's
Uber game manager where he's not throwing the ball a lot. Remember his second start last year was against the Browns on Thursday Night Football. He drops back like 60 times. And then, of course, he gets hurt last year. The Bengals really morphing into this Uber run-first team. Now, they didn't have the ball a ton.
Right.
Because Joe Mixon had 18 carries of his own. But interesting to me that they're winning games, or at least, in games where Joe Burrow's doing little. And he was very good throwing the ball yesterday as far as when he had chances to.
Update on the Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell, we were right tally.
You're not going to use the same joke I've seen Nathan and Austin already use, are you?
No. Jamar Chase with a couple of touchdowns. A third one that was like a deep bomb, which, remember, this is the thing that wasn't in the offense last year. Joe Burrow played really well up until his knee got snapped, but was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL on deep passes, maybe the worst statistically. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow had this incredible connection in college at LSU, and it was a bunch of these deep bombs that were just perfect ball placement right into his hands. And that's kind of what he was drafted to be. Okay, he can do a bunch. He's a complete receiver. He can do everything. But through 3 weeks, we've seen at least one in every game where Joe Burrow is connected deep with a basically perfect pass to Jamar Chase. Now, he also had a second touchdown in here as well where he smoked. Was it Joe Hayden in the end zone? So Jamar Chase looks great. Like, I would still like to see them use him more on the underneath quick stuff. Now,
because he could do it all.
Yeah, and because getting the ball out of Burrow's hands is kind of important quickly. Because at the moment, now look, it didn't matter in this game because Pittsburgh got no kind of pressure. But most games, he's still under pressure more than I think he should be, given what the state of that offensive line is. So use, like, the point of that ridiculous graphic of the Jamar Chase versus Penei Sewell thing.
Remind everybody of the graphic.
It was like Joe Burrow throwing to anybody with Penei Sewell equals, completion. Joe Burrow throwing to Jamar Chase with anybody as a tackle equals, broken quarterback, right? But the point is, the reason people were saying a receiver helps the offensive line as well relies on the ball coming out quickly because that guy's open. It doesn't work as much if you're relying on that guy being a longer developing deep down the field threat because those take time. So if you're going to maximize the idea that Jamar Chase can influence the offensive line and therefore be a part of protecting Joe Burrow, you need to get the ball out of his hands to Jamar Chase quicker, in addition to the deep shot that's there every game. The
deep shot, he stacked the corner, but he had that little arm bar.
Yeah, which he's really good at.
And this is what I loved about him. And I comped him to a bigger Antonio Brown first and then Jordy Nelson. And it was because of those types of things, the subtle, just hand battle wins. And again, just to reiterate why wide receivers are so much more valuable in our system when you break it down and point them to wins, it's like a 50-yard touchdown for a tackle to earn that level of value on an individual play basis. Like, he's got to be perfect on the next 70 pass protection snaps or something like that. You know what I mean? Just to equal a 50-yard touchdown, because even when the tackle does his job, well, doesn't necessarily mean it's a successful play.
Now, for what it's worth, Palazzolo still hasn't allowed a sack. This wasn't a great
should not
game for
be
him.
Looking at sacks for offensive
Anyway,
linemen.
well, I mean, he hasn't allowed a lot of pressure either, but this wasn't his best game.
Palazzolo's fine. I mean,
now,
fine.
There's a bunch of people that keep tweeting at me anytime Jamar Chase does anything good.
Set the record straight here.
Oh,
we're running long already. We're going to go
now?
3 hours today. I don't know, but let's set the record straight.
They're like, have you changed your mind now on Jamar Chase? Look at him making plays. I guess the drops thing didn't matter. Like, look, I had Jamar Chase as my number one receiver in the draft. Despite
but you were out on
him.
You did quit on him in the preseason.
Despite loving Devontae Smith, I still would say, look, I would go 1 and 1A just because there's no concern about Jamar Chase. Whereas, I don't know, I doubt 166 pounds matters for Devontae Smith, but there's always, there's a little percentage. And then he dropped 4 out of 5 passes in preseason, and I said I didn't really care. It's not a great, it's not a good thing, but drops come, go. There's no reason he should continue to drop passes. Let's keep on trucking. Jamar Chase will be fine. Then he comes out and was asked to describe the difference between the college ball and the NFL ball, and does that. Then takes it a step further and says, because there's no white stripes in the NFL ball, you got to start looking for the laces when you're catching it. And at that point, I was like, okay, this is worrying.
Then you're out.
No, very much did not say that, despite you trying to make me say that. I said that anytime a receiver is talking about looking for the laces when catching a ball, he is in his own head too much, and this is not a good thing. I would say that if any receiver in the NFL started talking about that. Now, again, it wasn't to say that, well, Jamar Chase is no hope now. We should dump him. He's a bust. Let's move on.
Can we find that tape? I think you said.
It was just to point out that if you're talking about that, that's just not good. That's concerning. Now, then you get to week 1, and he looks perfect. So it's all water under the bridge. It was concerning. It is no longer concerning because he catches the ball. So who cares? Like, the idea that there's some kind of gotcha because Jamar Chase is actually really good, exactly like I thought he was the whole way, is silly. People need to stop tweeting at me.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah, that ought to take care of it.
If you have any Jamar Chase complaints, please direct them to @PFF_Sam. Out on him after he couldn't catch the white stripes in the preseason.
Not that he couldn't catch them, that he was looking for the laces in the first place.
25-16, Titans beat the Colts. Carson Wentz battling through double ankles, but it just wasn't enough. As people have pointed out, best case scenario for the Eagles, Carson Wentz has to play 75% of the snaps this year for the Eagles to earn a first-round pick from the Colts. And, of course, the Colts fall to 0-3, so that potential first-round pick is potentially much higher.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there for Eagles fans here.
When there was a video of Carson Wentz warming up before the game, like doing little zigzags and trying to cut off both those ankles. Remember, this dude's got 2 sprained ankles. Assuming that was post-tape, like a dude taping up his ankles so they're rock solid and they don't move. If that was a post-tape clip, they shouldn't have let him on the field.
Yeah.
Like, he couldn't move properly. And when you watched him in the game, he was hobbled. I am pretty amazed that they let him go out there. Look, they
didn't want to go 0-3, man.
People conflate a lot of the time being injury prone and toughness. And look, Carson Wentz is injury prone. He is also extremely tough and will go out there and fight through injuries and pain and an awful lot of stuff that he really shouldn't be fighting through. At some point, you have to protect the guy from himself and say, hey, Carson, you can't really move around, and that's quite a large part of your game, so you're not playing today. Like, it would be one thing if it was Tom Brady, and you're like, okay, ankles aren't really a big part of your game, Tom. You can probably struggle through this. It's kind of important for Carson Wentz to have 2 functioning ankles in a game, and he didn't. And they put him out there, and it looked miserable. And I just think that they should have saved him from himself in this game because I don't think he really had a shot of getting anything done.
We talk about Matt Nagy may have known something with Justin Fields at practice. What do the Colts know about Jacob Eason So Jacob Eason had some flashes in the preseason. They don't trust him at all. They trust him enough that Brett Hundley is going to be elevated from the practice squad and be the guy.
In their defense, the last time he went on the field, he threw the ball right at Jalen Ramsey.
No, I get it. I understand.
I just think it wasn't fair to Carson Wentz to put him out in this game, given what he looked like he was physically. I think that was harsh. And sometimes you just have to say, yeah, we might be just giving this game away, and we might just be throwing a win out of the window.
On top of all that,
this guy can't function.
On top of all that, the Colts offensive line. So what was supposed to happen this year is the Colts were going to have this incredible offensive line and then maybe a questionable group on the perimeter to throw to, and it was going to limit their explosiveness offensively. Instead, what we have is an offensive line that's gotten whooped through 3 weeks, including yesterday.
They haven't had the starting five yet.
Yeah, I get it. But, Eric Fisher's back out there. Mark Lewinsky's not playing well. Ryan Kelly, we're talking 3 guys with pass blocking grades in the 40s and 50s. Then Quentin Nelson gets hurt after just 13 snaps, so that's not great. Chris Reed comes in for him. And, yes, Julian Davenport had to play football again. He wasn't an absolute disaster like he had been in past weeks. But regardless of how it happened, we had at least expected Carson Wentz to have protection. At least I did. He was going to have protection.
Yeah.
And then it was like, all right, who's going to emerge as playmakers? And I think we still see a lack of explosiveness from their receiving core. Michael Pittman leads the team in receiving yesterday. You've got Zach Pascal, Naheem Hines catching a bunch of passes. There's just nobody that you're afraid of on the outside. So this idea of the Penei Sewell, Jamar Chase debate, right? Oh, the receivers protect the line. The Colts have neither right now.
Another reason, by the way, why he shouldn't have been playing in this game. Like, if you are sending him out knowing that your right tackle is Julian Davenport, who at his best is a massive liability on the offensive line. And we've been talking about how difficult it is to flip from left to right. He was playing left tackle 1 or 2 weeks ago. You can't expect him to go to the right side when he was a train wreck on the left side and not worry about your quarterback who has 2 bum ankles and can't move around. This was harsh, way harsh on Carson Wentz. Then you get Quentin Nelson going down and Ryan Kelly and Mark Lewinsky not playing well, and this was just set up for Carson Wentz to fail. Now, he didn't even play that badly, and it was a no hope enterprise. And then for Tennessee, we've been saying how interesting the strategy for this team is, which is to base the entire thing around, quote unquote, the dudes.
Who would say that?
You. AJ Green, Julio Jones, Derrick Henry, and Ryan Tannehill, effectively. It's like a 4-man system. And then at one point, only 2 of them were on the field. AJ Brown goes down, Julio's on some kind of pitch count and isn't playing in some of the most important snaps in the game. And you have this collection of people catching passes where you're like, these guys wouldn't make any team in the NFL as starters. Why is this the game plan?
Before they traded for Julio, it was going to be those guys you're talking about.
And A.J. Brown, yeah.
And A.J. Brown, Westbrook Akina and Jeff Swaim and Cameron Batson. And, yeah, it's not the best group of guys that they have over there. Chester Rogers. I think that, look, they got away with it. Derrick Henry still churns out his 28 carries. Tannehill just drops back under 30 times. A couple weird interceptions in there.
Don't forget the great Racy McGrath.
Yeah, of course. So this could come back to bite Tennessee.
McMath, not even McGrath.
McMath, yeah.
McMath.
When I look at the Titans, I am concerned about the top-heavy nature of it. When Julio and A.J. Brown aren't there, and even though Derrick Henry's the outlier, I mean, in a game like yesterday, 28 for 113, I mean, that's fine. That's just it's a lot of carries. He didn't have that one where he just broke it, right? He had long of 19. In the past, you keep giving it to him before you know it, there's a 30 or 40-yarder in there. Tannehill added a little bit to the run game as well. But, I've got some concerns with the top-heavy nature of that receiving core. So they get by against a depleted Colts team. And Colts fall to 3-0. Titans hanging around at 2-1.
The next most fascinating thing in the Derrick Henry breaks all conventional wisdom known to mankind thing is going to be watching his career arc versus the running backs declining once they pass, 3,000 touches or whatever it is, or 1,000 touches or whatever that number is.
Yeah, how much of an outlier is Henry?
I mean, it has to be insane already, right? Like when his high school numbers surfaced again the other day, and it was like thousands of touches for 12,000 yards, 55 touchdowns. He had 4,000 yards in his senior season, averaged 36 carries a game. Then had that Alabama career where he had that one season where he was loaded up as a freight train. Then his NFL career, which is all about giving him the ball every 2 seconds. He has to already be way above the point where running backs have typically reached that wall where they've just carried it too many times and they're done. So he's going to have another one of those career graphs where, you see this line that just drops off a cliff for every other running back, and then Henry just carries on into the distance because apparently he's made out of something that other people aren't.
What did I call him last week? The exception.
No. Okay.
Derek, the exception, Henry.
That's not a great nickname.
The exception?
No. No.
That's a good one.
No, it's not.
It's better than inflection point.
It's not. Inflection point is better. It just is.
Saints 28, Patriots 13. Another weird game. So, Saints defense. Maybe every other week they'll just be
every other week, yeah.
Well, now they had their coaches back. So how much do you look at the week 2 Saints game?
Saints have a lot working against them at the start of the season. Remember, they've been on the road for like a month because of the hurricane.
Right.
They then had the COVID stuff where they were missing 8 assistant coaches on the sideline. Well, look, nobody knows what kind of impact that makes, right? What does an assistant coach actually do during the course of a game on the sideline, and how much can that materially impact what's happening on a down-to-down basis? I think at the very minimum, we can speculate that it must do something. It can't hurt to have 8 guys who are supposed to be doing things in the course of a day active, there, existing, and teach coaching things, making changes, whatever. So missing 8 of them has to have done something in addition to being on the road for this length of time. It doesn't explain it, I don't think, but it's certainly factored in. Then you get this game where we've been talking before about the roller coaster that is Jameis Winston, and this was the full Jameis experience, complete with falling backwards from like almost a horizontal angle, except this time it was caught for a touchdown.
I need side by side of last week. So remember last week I'm on here with my Josh Allen jersey, and I looked at the camera and I said, "Here's Jameis's interception."
Yeah,
he's like throwing like this.
He threw the same play, except one was a ridiculous pick and the other one ended up as a touchdown.
Well, yes, he made the same exact play in the grasp, followed backwards just like this. This week it's a touchdown. That's the full Jameis experience, man. That's what you're getting. That's what Sean Payton signed up for.
It was a play where you can imagine Sean Payton looking at that, and as it's happening, going, "Oh," like hands over his face, and then suddenly, while he's got his head in his hands, thinking, "What the hell have I signed up for?" Hearing the roar of the crowd.
Listen,
and
metaphor.
Going, what? What just happened?
Listen, metaphor, man. Sean Payton's like
not a metaphor. That's what I literally imagine.
I'm gonna throw one at you. Sean Payton's like the guy who's coming off of a 20-year marriage, gets divorced. He's got this consistency in his life for 20 years, gets divorced, and then he's at like the club every weekend and all that stuff. Like, doing stuff he probably shouldn't be doing in his 40s. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So Sean Payton's gone from the consistency, I know exactly what I'm getting with Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Got a little divorce. Something came up. Drew had to retire. And now he's going Jameis. He's just going full Jameis. Sean Payton's at the club every weekend. No idea what's going to happen.
So Sean Payton, in your hypothetical metaphor world, has now hitched himself up to some 23-year-old psychopath that he met in the nightclub.
Thank you for tying it together for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Sean Payton's midlife crisis is Jameis Winston.
This is a 23-year-old lunatic that he met in a nightclub hammering drinks.
Sean Payton's midlife crisis.
That's Jameis Winston.
We just reset at the same time. Somebody's going to gift that. Where's Meme Guy? We just did the seat reset at the same time. It was beautiful. So Jameis throws a touchdown while falling forward. Falling backwards.
That's important. Forwards would have been a completely different play for Jameis.
That's true.
He's got that one mastered.
So through 3 weeks, the Saints absolutely dominated the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
Pretty much got dominated by the Carolina Panthers.
Yep.
And then in this game, the defense was locked down again. Mac Jones on passes 10-plus yards. 6 for 22 in this game. 6 for 22 on passes down the field, including a couple late interceptions. One of the first interceptions, Jonnu Smith, just out of his reach, or whatever you want to call it, a drop or a just miss. Just kind of hands it. Was it Malcolm Jenkins with the pick six?
Yeah.
I mean, some weird plays in this as well. And the Patriots, tried to make the comeback, but then the Saints. So the Patriots come back to get it within a score, and the Saints came back with an impressive drive. They came back with a scoring drive of their own. That was the most impressive, most important drive of the game.
Yeah, and the other thing about this is that the Saints were missing some defensive players last week as well. Like they were down personnel as well as coaching staff and those kinds of things. So they got guys back for this game, which is probably pretty important to how that defense plays. The other thing is, like, for as much as the Patriots offense will be okay and Mac Jones looks maybe the best of the rookie quarterbacks, which is a pretty low bar at this point, they're not asking them to do an awful lot. And because of that, the offense is reasonably predictable, which makes it easier to defend. So at some point, they're going to have to open up that and ask Mac Jones to do a little bit more just to make his own life easier, to stop teams being able to just clamp down on everything the Patriots are running. And if they're not able to just like stomp all over a team on the ground, run the ball at will, they're going to have some problems.
Mac Jones was the leading rusher for the Patriots yesterday with 28 yards. Damian Harris goes 6 carries for 14 yards. I mean, that's a big part of it too. We thought that the Patriots would have this mauling offensive line, that they would have games where it was, a lot of 4 and 5 yard runs and ball control. They are running this ball control offense. They do run these 15 play drives quite a bit, but then they stall in the red zone. That's been a big part of it too. Early in this game, they had a 15 or 16 play drive for about 60 yards and kick a field goal. The Patriots have to do better in the red zone, and that's where Mac Jones needs to do better. And that's where I wonder if the playmaker situation in New England, like Kendrick Bourne had a couple plays here and there, and Jacoby Myers is pretty good, but the tight ends not getting enough out of them. So the Patriots they've got some things to figure out, and they got the Bucs coming to town. We'll talk plenty about the return, man. Brady and Mac Jones were both the leading rushers on their respective teams yesterday. What do you think of that?
That's kind of crazy.
For the Mac Jones-Tom Brady comparison.
Daniel Jones probably was as well, right? Because he is the leading rusher for the Giants over the season.
Jameis goes 13 for 21 for 128. 6.1 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns. In the 2 wins, Jameis is just in this...
They are in this weird world
game manager.
Yeah, where they're trying to limit the Jameis experience. But you can't. You can't limit the Jameis experience because even when it's only supposed to be like a 5-yard pass, he's going to throw it falling backwards horizontally. Like, you can't get that out of him. That's just who Jameis is. I was saying to you before we went live, you see all these off-season videos of Jameis working out, like dodging tires and like falling past flying bricks and all these kinds of things. You're like, why would you be doing that? How is that helping anything? And then you watch him play in a game, you're like, oh, that's actually a pretty close simulation of what you're doing.
That is what you're doing, maneuver in the pocket and throwing like this.
Yeah.
We need the off-season video of him. Does he practice?
I was going to say, at least he's practiced it. Like,
what do you think his off-season completion percentage is while he's falling backwards? That's 60% in the off-season with no defense. It probably worked during the regular season. All right, Raiders 31, Dolphins 28. One of the craziest games of the entire weekend. Dolphins got up 14-point lead early. We had a pick 6 by Landon Roberts. The offensive line by the Dolphins actually had a really good, well-blocked one run that led to a big touchdown. Then the safety in the end zone, man, like all sorts of just weird stuff in this game. But the Raiders win in overtime. They move to 3-0. Derek Carr getting that MVP hype. Why are people asking us to apologize to Derek Carr? What did we say?
Like a season and a half ago, 2 seasons, we made that, or I made that little joke about how he doesn't really seem to know what he's doing. Like he plays the quarterback position a little bit like Kirk Cousins in terms. Oh,
Carr's been really good since you said that. By the way.
Yeah. I'm really good at like fixing a quarterback. I mean, I turned Tom Brady from done into like
8 years ago.
Yeah. Just immediately. So if you want a guy fixed, I can do that right now.
Carr's playing some great football. So 3rd straight game, Carr's had at least 4 big-time throws.
He's looked incredible. He leads the league in big-time throws, right? He was tied. I assume he leads with another 4. And he's improved at the stuff that I was critical of, which is there was this degree of obliviousness to his game where when the situation changed, when guys like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, when they automatically adjust how they're playing based off the down and distance and the game situation, the score, and all those kinds of things, Carr flatlined. It didn't change. It was like the same approach, regardless of what the situation around him was. And Kirk Cousins is the same as that as well. You know, he's the passing equivalent of the running back that was like, if it's 3rd and 1, I'll get you 3 yards, and if it's 1st and 10, I'll get you 3 yards. That's what he did. Carr and Cousins are very like that from a passing standpoint, but Carr isn't anymore. He's changed, and he has developed and does adjust situationally, and we're seeing that in these games where they go to overtime and he needs to do something late in the game or keep a drive going. I've been really impressed with his development. Look, that 2016 season, I thought he was going to be the kind of next great, quote-unquote, young quarterback, like the next guy in the pipeline who was going to be somewhere in and around the Matt Ryan inflection point. And then he got the broken ankle in that in the playoff game, and took him years to get back to being the same kind of guy again. But I massively impressed by Carr. I'm not going to apologize because unlike the Josh Allen thing, I think he was like this. That was actually a problem of his play, and he changed it.
Derek Carr's career passing grade starts out as a 54 as a rookie, up to 77 in 2015. The year you mentioned, 2016, 87. But then 17, 18, and 19, right? 69, 71. So he dips again, right? Gruden shows up, 19? 81.2. So that's get a little better. Last year, 83.9. This year, he's an 86. So he's started to get better. So he's got 3 years in the 80s. The point is, he's pretty much been a mid-tier, upper mid-tier type of quarterback. The point I made a couple years ago is let's be more aggressive. When you have that guy, and I compared him to this point in Stafford's career where Stafford can make every single throw but was in dink and dunk land. I mean, he was throwing so much underneath, and then in 2019, I think it was, Stafford started chucking it down the field. He had a career year. Now look at him with the Rams, whatever. With Carr, I just wanted more aggressiveness, and I thought they showed that at times last year, right? Is just throwing the ball down the field. Now we're seeing in overtime when he's got to make these big throws and throw the deep crosser and throw with touch and throw the back shoulder, whatever. Carr has all the throws in his bag, and you're not tapping into that if you're just running stick concept all day, running quick game. So, I credit the Raiders, they're creating offense. They've got playmakers. They've got a guy who can get them the ball, and Carr's playing just really clean football right now.
I had an epiphany in this game. I didn't realize that I was a really big Jacoby Brissett fan.
Can I read his stat line first before you expound upon that?
Yes.
32 for 49, so 32 completions.
So that's good.
For 215 yards.
Less good.
You usually do that on 20 completions. 32 for 49 for 215. That's 4.4 yards per attempt. No touchdowns, no picks. PFF grade is going to be a lot better because he did move the chains and he had that incredible 4th and 20. But I did not know this about you, that you were a big Jacoby Brissett fan.
I didn't know this about me either until I was watching this game, and I was just like, go on, Jacoby, go on. He was just making these plays time after time. He reminds me of the quarterback in a movie where their team is massively outclassed and the guy's getting his ass kicked, but he's he's fighting through. He's getting it done. You know what I mean? Massively overmatched, but still grinding, carrying his team on his shoulders, trying to get something done, and ultimately coming short in some sort of glorious, futile way. That was Jacoby, right? Just the dude's trying to get out of the way of defenders. At one point, 3rd and 9, takes off from the pocket, runs right at a linebacker, and sort of tries to juke him and ends up just getting buried. Made the first guy miss, tried to make the second guy miss, and the guy didn't buy it, and he just gets torpedoed. That's there's just something admirable and glorious about the way Jacoby Brissett plays football, and I like it.
That's why the reason why he got a starting job is a game just like that. It was week 4 of the preseason when he was with the New England Patriots, and they kind of gave him a showcase game. He plays the entire game. And for every cool, great thing that he did, it was you can't really do that, Jacoby. So there was a lot of good, there was a lot of questionable, and the Colts ended up trading for him after Andrew Luck retired and Jacoby Brissett became the starter.
He's
you've still described high-end backup.
Yes. I'm not claiming he's anything better than that. There's something glorious, and it's he is he's the Spartans in the 300, right? It's like you are going down in a cloud of arrows, but it's going to be glorious to watch. That's Jacoby Brissett. Like it's going to be a futile exercise. You will lose, but you're going to applaud the man on his way down.
Now, look, it's full disclosure. It's tough for us to take in the entire week, just hours after it finished. One thing I need to investigate is going through the 13 Jalen Waddle targets, because Jalen Waddle, this looks like a running back stat line. Just pretend it's attempts and yards. 12 catches for 58 yards for Jalen Waddle, 4.8 yards per reception. So he catches 12 of his 13 targets for only 58 yards. That's a big part of that Jacoby Brissett ridiculous stat line. Is this one of those cases we always talk about when you have the Tyreek or the Jalen Waddle or Miami Dolphins fans, when you had Ted Ginn trying so hard to get the ball into this guy's hands? Of course, he was the recipient of the safety. So hard to get into their hands. It's like, just run him on a deep over route once in a while and let him use his speed.
They don't have the time for that. That's the problem. By the way, I forgot about that safety.
Safety was great, too.
They threw a smoke route in the end zone that ended up getting tackled for a safety because the ball was like so high and took so long to get there. Pro Football Reference tweeted out that it was the first time in their database where a safety had occurred on a completed catch that didn't involve either a penalty or a fumble of some kind.
What a game this was.
Like, Casey Hayward had time to just watch that coming, run up and tackle him in the end zone for a safety. But, like, the same problems we've talked about with this offensive line and Tua, they're still there with Jacoby. And if anything, they're worse because Jacoby holds the ball longer. He averaged 2.7 something seconds per play, which is fast for Jacoby. Like, he's typically over 3. So he like shaved off 0.3 of a second on average and is still getting buried by pressure. 6 pressures from Austin Jackson, 6 from Robert Hunt, 4 from Liam Eichenberg with a 29 pass blocking grade, 4 from Jesse Davis. These are like your components of your offensive line, and they're just surrendering pressure left, right, and center. Again, Jacoby's just sitting there under a shield watching the sky darken from a million arrows being sent up in there and just trying to get something done by heaving the ball out to Jalen Waddle.
Hey, look, the Raiders' pass blocking wasn't much better. Alex Leatherwood struggling, Andre James struggling. They've got Derek Carr, though.
Yeah.
Derek Carr to get him out of it. Look, pass rushing once again, really good for the Raiders. All that said, I do think the Dolphins are this quirky team, though. They do make things difficult for quarterbacks. Carr they forced him to have to make some special throws. They did get after him a little bit. Dolphins are going to be one of those teams that they're going to be in all these games.
Yeah, it's a good defense.
I know they just lost 35-0 last week. I'm just saying they're going to be a tough out. I think the Dolphins' offensive line, though, is going to hold them back, of course. And then if Brissett and I don't know that Brissett or Tua can overcome, right? I don't think either one necessarily can overcome those issues unless they have a game like week 1. I mean, they only scored 17 points in week 1 against the Patriots, but it was one of those, hey, did a nice job with Waddle, did a nice job with Devontae Parker and using those playmakers. They got to get those guys involved in more explosive opportunities, not this 12 for 56.
They're also in a tough spot if, however long Tua is out, Jacoby Brissett continues to prove that there's essentially no difference between the two in terms of quality. Like, that level sets for them pretty conclusively. However you thought Tua was performing in the vacuum of he's the only quarterback we've seen, if you throw Jacoby out there, who you know is a high-end backup and no better, and there's no difference between him and Tua, that's now a tough spot.
So you're saying that's your Tua decision being made there?
Well, it's showing you where he is. You know what I mean? Like, without that context, you could be forgiven for saying, well, he doesn't look good. On the other hand, this line is terrible on the offense and blah, blah, blah. And maybe Tua is better than how he's looking. But if you then throw Jacoby Brissett in there for a run of games and he looks the same, that's a tougher argument to make.
First place Raiders, 3-0 in the AFC West. Max Crosby, Yannick Ngakoue, another good game rushing the passer. Those guys have been fantastic so far through 3 games. Huge part of the Raiders' success. Also 3-0. We're going to go 3 hours today, by the way. Also
How many games we got left?
4. Running long.
Yeah.
Don't forget to get to DraftKings. Get that free $150 in plays. Just get another ad in there. Broncos 26-0. They also moved to 3-0 in the AFC West.
Well, this will be okay. This is a quick one.
Yeah, there's not much to talk about here. Zach Wilson's still struggling. Denver's defense is Denver as a team has given up 26 points through 3 weeks. That includes a kickoff return. That includes a late Daniel Jones touchdown against the Giants. The defense is looking really good. Of course, you have to factor in they've played the Giants, the Jaguars, and the Jets. So they've played the 2 rookie quarterbacks and then the Giants offense. Either way, Denver continues to show, hey, look, they've built this really good roster. Teddy Bridgewater, oh man, continues to just be efficient, not missing a ton of throws, getting the ball to where he needs to get it to, including Tim Patrick, who was awesome in this game. Denver is looking good, man. As the Chiefs start to show a little weakness, Denver and the Raiders and the Chargers all getting better.
So you know what sums up this game? You know those win probability graphs where it's like play by play and it shows you who was going to win the game percentage-wise in any given play, and it usually looks like an EKG when people show it. You know, like bounces up, shoots down, like all over the place. This one was just, it starts off here and it goes immediately straight down to like 100% for the Broncos and then just flatlines at certain win from like halftime onwards. It was at like 99 or something insane, right up at 100% by like halftime, and never wavered. The Jets were never in this game. It was just immediately Denver is going to win this. It's going to be comfortable. And how long can this game take? Like, how quickly can we just get through this? Everybody get back on the plane and go home. It was as simple as that. It really was.
Yeah. It was domination by the Broncos. I told the Titans to trade for Tim Patrick.
You did. You told them.
Yeah, they could have used him. Even though they won, they still could have used him to be that Julio insurance. But, again, credit the Broncos roster building when you do have injuries at wide receiver and Jerry Jeudy's down. You've got a guy like Tim Patrick as your 3rd and 4th receiver to be able to come in and be the best receiver on the field in this particular game. Justin Simmons making plays. Draymond Jones did a really nice job in the run game. Broncos rushing the passer pretty well. Zach Wilson, that offense, again, it's timing, it's footwork and efficiency with Wilson. It's just not there. None of these rookies are really seeing the field all that well, I would say.
Another 2 picks from Wilson, again, only one of which was his fault. He's making some bad decisions and some bad plays, but he's also getting screwed by the guys he's throwing the ball to. It's not looking great.
Could have been worse. Javonte Williams, who runs the ball hard and forces a lot of missed tackles, did so again. He loses a fumble, but the Broncos generally run the ball pretty well with Melvin Gordon and Williams as well. So, and then again, Bridgewater just, another adjusted completion percentage over 80.
Yep.
Right. So he's.
So look for Denver,
and he's throwing the ball further down the field than he usually does.
He is
historically,
but this is the end of the freebie.
Okay.
The first 3 games were what we said coming into the season were the 3 games that Denver was supposed to win pretty comfortably. They've done that. It's an as expected. It's well done. You've achieved that. If anything, you've surpassed expectations because Teddy has been playing better than he looked like he was going to. But now is when it starts. Like now you're actually facing real teams, and you need to show.
They have the Ravens next week. I think they have the Ravens.
Why do you have to ask that? Well, I didn't know.
I think they have the Ravens next week. You don't have to.
But now it starts, right? Now you're actually facing real teams. Yes, Ravens, then Steelers, then Raiders, then Browns, Washington, Dallas. Like now the real schedule starts, and you need to show that you can maintain this run against real teams that can actually go toe-to-toe with you.
All right. Impressed by the Broncos, 26-0. That's it.
Yeah, see, we flew through that one.
We did. But now it's Rams-Bucs.
Oh. Okay.
Rams 34, Bucs 24. Rams take a commanding lead in the race for the number 1 overall seed. Huge game, man. It was early season. Tony, not Romo. It was Aikman and Buck talking about, like, when was the last time Matthew Stafford had this type of spotlight on him in a week 3 type of game? Maybe never. Just really impressive all-around win by the Bucs.
Yeah.
By the Rams.
Troy Aikman, 54 years old, whose career overlapped with Tom Brady, who's still playing and looking like a
you were sending me those like degrees of separation.
Well, that one just occurred to me that like during the game, hey, Troy Aikman's been in the booth forever. Like his career actually crossed over with Tom Brady's, and then it was like, what's the most ridiculous career crossover I can create? And it was like Jerry Rice drafted in '85. His career overlapped with Aaron Rodgers or whatever. So this was the test for the Rams. This was their first test, right? This week was the version of Denver's next week, which is the real schedule starts now.
Yeah.
So Tampa Bay comes to town. They were the favorites, having started off as an underdog. They're the team that level sets what looked like the best team in the NFL, the Super Bowl champions. Now let's see if this Matthew Stafford and the Rams thing still functions against a real defense, against Tom Brady that's going to be putting up points with that offense. And it did. It held up. And Deshaun Jackson, this was the game where he had been a non-factor for most of the season so far, and then was just running free behind the Tampa Bay defense like all game. And okay, they only hit him on one of those, but like he had 3 opportunities where he could have had like a bomb touchdown on each one. And the Rams look good. Their defense looked nasty. And okay, Tampa Bay were missing some players and got banged up in the secondary, which is starting to look like a bit of a worry. But this was, I think, it gets used like this term all the time, but I think this was a genuine statement win from the Rams.
Yeah, so Stafford finishes 27 of 38 for 343, 9 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns. Like you said, Deshaun Jackson was behind the defense 3 different times. Ends up with the 175-yarder. That was impressive. What the Rams did here, they were up 14-7 at the half. They get up 21-7. Bucs come back. So there was a bit of a back and forth. But just like I mentioned with the Saints, they had that like answer of a drive. The Rams kept having answers of drives because, it's Brady and the Bucs and all those playmakers, even without Antonio Brown. There's always, the Bucs can just, they can come back, right? They could score a lot of points. Yeah. But the Rams did a really nice job of answering. And I want to talk about their defense first because the Bucs team is predicated on throwing the ball down the field. Tom Brady's average depth of target in this one, only 6.7. That is what the Rams defense does. And the Bucs decided to attack them with underneath stuff, which isn't really their game. They want to create big plays. The Rams take that stuff away. Now, Brady overall played a pretty clean game, missed a few throws, didn't really put the ball in harm's way. They got away from the run game.
Yeah.
But this game was won and lost on third down, where the Rams continued to convert, and then the Bucs did not convert. The Rams defense did a really nice job on third down and got some pressure. That's where this game was won and lost. And then I also credit the Rams on the other side of the ball when you mentioned Jamel Dean goes down and D. Delaney comes in. He's got no NFL experience, and the Rams were attacking. They were attacking everybody.
Yeah.
But the Bucs secondary just looked overmatched against a great group of Rams receivers and tight ends.
But what I really liked about the way they exploited that was they didn't just say, so you see Rodgers do this all the time, right? A guy goes down in the secondary, a backup comes in, and Rodgers is just going Rodgers just hitting that guy in man coverage, right? Because he's the new dude in. We're going to see if he's okay, and we're just going to target him. What the Rams did was when the Bucs when they got deeper into the depth chart and Jamel Dean goes down, and you guys come in, is they go, okay, we're not going to see if D. Delaney is good. What we're going to do is see if your communication works with a new dude in there. So we're going to run stacked formations, and we're going to run crossing routes, with the releases of the receivers, and we're going to see if your assignments still function when the backup comes in. Because the starters have that stuff down most of the time, right? They understand the rules of what depth you need to be at and who's going to take who when they release from the stack formation, and everything functions, right? Now the backup comes in. Did that guy get those reps? Does he understand what the assignments are when you start crossing receivers and everybody goes off in different directions? And the answer was no. So wide open touchdown to Cooper Kupp. That, I think, was a really smart way of attacking those things. They started screwing with the Bucs coverages and their rules and seeing if their backups understood the assignments the way the starters do.
Yeah, because if you are the Bucs and you're like, all right, we're depleted in the secondary, let's protect these guys. Let's play a little bit more zone, which is generally safer to protect corners. But to your point, you've got to switch. When you play zone, you do have to understand the game a little bit more, right? You do have to have it repped out. You do have to understand your defense and what you're going to do and everything.
And it's more relevant to like how much practice time that guy has had. Like ultimately, everybody in the NFL can cover to some degree. They're not in the league if they can't go one-on-one with a wide receiver and do a reasonable job most of the time. Now, they're going to be worse than the starters, but it's not like that guy is a walking train wreck. But if he hasn't been getting any kind of starters reps in practice during the week, he might not be as clued in on the mental side of things and where, what all those assignments are and the immediate adjustments that needed to be made and that all the starters have down because they've had the practice time on. So I think that was a really smart way of attacking it, and it worked.
I mentioned earlier, Tom Brady, the leading rusher, 3 carries for 14 yards, including a QB sneak for a touchdown. The Bucs just completely abandoned the run. So once again, the Rams do a really nice job of inviting you to run, which, should lead to 4 or 5 yards per carry, right? But Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette could not get anything going. The Rams were inviting the run. It was not effective. They did a great job up front. So the Bucs completely abandoned it. So Brady ends up going 41 for 55 for 432, gets sacked a few times. But again, the Rams are forcing you to make play after play after play in the pass game. And everything's a tight window throw for the most part. But it came down to third down, miss here, miss there, fourth down miss where Brady overthrows Gio Bernard. Every time the Bucs had a chance to make a comeback, the Rams end up getting the big stop. So their defense is legit.
Yeah.
Once again this year.
And they were forcing the Bucs to just, be consistent and make plays after play after play after play. And they kind of, they didn't, obviously, because they only scored 24 points and weren't able to keep pace. But they did enough that if their defense had held up its end of the bargain, they would have been okay. And that was the concerning part if you're the Bucs. Okay, the injuries you can sort of dismiss and say, we're down, we're depleted in the secondary. The Rams exploited that. That won't be an issue later in the season, we hope. But the defensive line got dominated. They are supposed to be able to get pressure across the board. That front four wrecking opposing offenses.
The Bucs defensive line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Rams offensive line won that battle. They kept Matthew Stafford clean all game long. Tampa Bay's defensive line barely got any pressure whatsoever, and they couldn't. That was enough. The Rams just had it easier on offense. It was also interesting because when they abandoned the run, no Lenny, no Ronald Jones, it became a Gio Bernard game, who didn't get a single carry but had 10 targets. Yeah. And this was we were wondering if they still had this. Does Gio become the third down back where if they get in a game like this, it just becomes the Gio show? And it did. Now, okay, it wasn't particularly productive, 51 yards out of those 9 catches. But I think that's a useful thing, knowing that if they get in a game like this in the playoffs, they have a running back that they're prepared to throw the ball at 10 times. If that was happening to Ronald Jones or Leonard Fournette, you would say this is a rough situation to be in.
You could tell early on that was the Bucs' game plan. They were going to get the ball to backs. They were going to get it to tight ends. Until the second half, they opened it up a little bit and threw the ball down the field. But again, the Rams, they're just so fundamentally sound defensively, taking away the deep stuff, but they were breaking on the underneath stuff and limiting yards after the catch and everything. So credit the Rams' defense. The offense had answers for everything the Bucs threw at them. We will debate this week on the PFF Daily if the Rams are the best team in the NFL or in the NFC. We will debate. Okay, so keep an eye on that on the daily. But as of right now, look at the Rams, 3-0. Cardinals are 3-0. The Seahawks, however, they fall to 1-2 in the NFC West. The Vikings, I don't want to say dominant win. Offensively, the Vikings dominated. They moved the ball at will, especially through the passing game. They win 30-17 against the Seattle Seahawks. Were you surprised by this outcome? Vikings are a couple plays away from 3-0, man.
Massively surprised. I didn't think that they were realistically in with much of a chance in this game.
Vikings pessimist over here, always.
But, Kirk Cousins just didn't miss throws, any of them.
Yeah, his official adjusted completion percentage, 86.1 in this one. Average depth of target, 5.7. But it was, I think it was DJ Reed, Seahawks cornerback, who just came out and said they just out-schemed us. And I don't know if that's calling out the coaching staff. He said it's on us too. But the Vikings just had answer after answer after answer, especially third downs and moving the chains. Cousins is playing some really good football right now.
And I think they're better now that they've been forced to run with 3 wide receivers. This was reluctant. Remember, they didn't want to do that. They had this 2 tight end system where last year it was Irv Smith and Kyle Rudolph. Rudolph's out of town. Irv Smith is broken. So you're left with Tyler Conklin and people behind him that you don't want in the lineup very much. So Mike Zimmer was like, oh, fine, I guess we'll run with 3 wide receivers. So KJ Osborne becomes the third guy, plays 43 snaps out of 73 in this game, and they're just better for that. It's more dangerous. It's more threatening having 3 wide receivers and running 11 personnel than it is running 2 tight ends, one of which doesn't concern anybody and the other of which isn't a massive threat either. The Vikings offense is more dangerous now that they've been forced into this way of playing.
Reminds me a little bit of when Christian McCaffrey went down last year for the Carolina Panthers. And it's like they lost this cog in the offense, but it forced them to to throw to their receivers, who were really, really good as well. And look, McCaffrey's doing a great job with the Panthers this year where he was before he got hurt. And we'll see if that theory holds true now that McCaffrey's hurt once again. But there was this element of you don't force it. You don't force your offense to do something where it might actually be detrimental. So, having more receivers on the field and putting the ball in Kirk's hands a little bit more might be more efficient for the Vikings. And they did all this without Dalvin. As much as I love Dalvin, he's still a running back, right?
He is. Fact.
Vikings also just one up front, man. Defensive line did a really nice job getting after Russell Wilson. The Seahawks still had a handful of those big plays down the field, but I don't know something's missing from the Seattle offense right now. It's too. It might be too predicated too much on big plays through 3 weeks. The down-to-down efficiency is not there, but they've got these big plays that have saved the stats, so to speak. So it doesn't look like that, but the down-to-down efficiency is missing.
That was the most surprising part about this, was that Seattle's offense wasn't able to just target Minnesota's secondary deep and wreck them over the course of the game. Early in the game, DK Metcalf put Patrick Peterson in a blender and then sidestepped the safety after he got the ball, and you're like, oh, this is going to be a disaster. Then goes and cooks Rashad Breeland for a touchdown just on a simple out pattern. You're like, this is just going to be too easy. Then Chris Carson runs through the defense for another score, and you're saying, okay, the Vikings offense might be fine. They're doing a good job, but they're not going to be able to stop Seattle at all. And then they did. Donnell Hunter had a ton of pressure, 7 pressures in this game, one of his best games for a while. And he was really the primary source, but they were getting pressure up the middle as well. Those 2 big nose tackles, one of whom was playing 3-tech. They're not going to be sack artists, but they do push the pocket and collapse the interior and force the quarterback somewhere else, which for Russell Wilson it's what starts the dominoes, right? It's what gets him moving, which is where he does a lot of his best work, but also is always a losing proposition long term, and usually is a good thing for a defense. So it was enough that secondary, which is still, I think, a huge concern, held up.
Tyler Lockett gets hurt as well. And anytime Tyler Lockett, this has been like the annual thing, right? Tyler Lockett gets hurt or he's playing banged up or whatever it might be, and the Seahawks offense just doesn't look right. As much as we talk about the Titans being top heavy, are the Seahawks top heavy? I mean, they drafted D. Eskridge with their first pick in the second round to add some depth there, and Eskridge hasn't been on the field. And is it too top heavy of an offense here? I mean, I think it's a fair question.
I think Eskridge is a big part of this. If he's healthy, it's a different conversation. But while he isn't there, if you lose Tyler
Lockett. If the Seahawks can't run an efficient offense because their rookie second rounder isn't there, then that's a bigger issue.
No, but it's a significant part of this, right? It's how top heavy is a team? Well, it depends if the third option is healthy or not.
Justin Jefferson, by the way, one more thing on DK. He's expanded his skill set a little bit this year. He's running quick outs. It used to just be slants and goes and the deep over and post. It was pretty limited route tree. He's running short stuff, and he's pretty good at it. I mean, he's showing some agility for a guy that ran a 5-flat shuttle. I'm just saying that the Seahawks should be better. And I don't know if they're just too dependent on big plays right now. Justin Jefferson is awesome. 8 first downs. Between him and Thielen, Cousins' great touchdown throw to Thielen on that post in the red zone. They're just tough to cover, man. It is tough to cover Thielen and Jefferson.
And on that play, if he hadn't targeted Thielen, Jefferson was wide open underneath him and would have walked in for a touchdown as well. He actually took the harder pass to hit Thielen in the end zone for that score. Both guys could have scored a touchdown on that play.
The more I watch Jefferson, the more I think him and Devontae Adams, with what they bring to the table, I think is so similar. Where if you man up against Devontae, he's just going to get open, and it seems like Jefferson's going to be that same guy. It wasn't, his rookie season was real. It was one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen. He's just such a dynamic route runner. I just think the value of receivers, man. The Vikings are going to be able to put points on the board as long as Jefferson and Thielen are healthy. And Cousins is, playing efficient football right now. It makes the Vikings very dangerous. They're a couple plays away from a much better record than 1-2. And this just kind of showed what they could do offensively in this game.
Yeah.
Seahawks have questions on the defense, man. A lot of questions on the defensive side of the ball.
I think both these teams do, to be honest.
They both do, but the Vikings got some pressure this week that they, hadn't been getting over the last couple of years, so changed things a little bit. All right, what do we have left here? I lost track. There's one more. That's it. There we go. Packers, Niners.
Yeah.
We're over 2 hours, but it's fun.
Oh, yeah.
People want this. The
Bengals.
Packers 30-28. A lot of things at play here. Aaron Rodgers just unreal under pressure late in the game with 40 seconds to go, gets the Packers into field goal range. Again, him and Devontae, they're just unstoppable as a duo. Devontae takes the helmet-to-helmet hit and comes back. He said he hurt his chest, and then he got tested in concussion protocol. I am shocked that he ended up back in the game like 2 plays later.
Yes, I'm not at all shocked that he ended up in the concussion protocol and be getting tested. I am pretty shocked that they decided all was good and sent him back out there. Also pretty shocked that wasn't a penalty thrown on that play. Like, that's the play the league is trying to take out of the game. A safety cracking a dude in the head. Now look, there's mitigation there in that there's a degree of where is he supposed to aim, and football it's a sport where it's very difficult to hit with the shoulder to a guy's chest and not have either helmet involved in the play. It's just more difficult than it is in certain other contact sports. But that is a hit the league is trying to remove, and that was a pretty obvious and egregious example of it, and they didn't throw a flag.
Yeah, it looked like a tough play. I think it was it Ward that hit him, helmet to helmet. It looked like a tough play to avoid, but yeah, I did expect it to get flagged. Aaron Rodgers, big time throws left and right. We'll talk about Garoppolo in a minute, but Rodgers and the Packers seemed like, hey, they're back. They were playing some good defense for a while. Ended up, giving it up a little bit toward the end. The other part here is the Packers. Eric's been on this train of you don't kick a field goal to go up 6. So if you're up 3 late in the game, the touchdown is 1,000 times more valuable than the field goal for a couple of reasons. Historically, teams that are chasing 3 play to tie, right? They play to go kick a field goal and tie, and if that happens, then theoretically it's still a 50-50 proposition that you can win. When teams are chasing 4 or more, in 6, they're trying to, they're 4 down territory with everything. They're going for a touchdown. And if they score a touchdown, you're in trouble. You don't have that overtime opportunity. You don't have that 50-50 proposition. The Packers kind of get away with it. They got away with it. They go up 6 with the field goal. The Niners go ahead with the touchdown. Some people are saying they scored too quickly. The same debate with the Chargers, right? You don't leave Rodgers this much time. You don't leave Mahomes this much time. But when you need a touchdown at the end of the game and you have Jimmy Garoppolo throwing the ball backwards, panicking, and throwing people into coverage and hospital balls left and right, and you don't know what you're going to get from Jimmy G, you take the touchdown when it is there. And that's what the Niners did. And then you just go play defense and hope that Aaron Rodgers doesn't throw a perfect pass over the outstretched hand of your defender. I mean, I don't think the Niners played that poorly as far as the, when to score a touchdown at the end.
Yeah, I don't think that part they played poorly. I think overall, it's interesting. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo almost had a complete meltdown late in this game. Was doing some ridiculous things, which prompted obviously everybody to start screaming, "Where's Trey Lance? Let's get Trey Lance in the game." Having just watched Justin Fields.
Did Twitter not learn the last time you asked for a quarterback?
Right.
Give us Fields.
We spent 3 weeks campaigning for Justin Fields to get out there. He goes, and it's a complete disaster. And by the way, the ones that have been starting from week 1, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, are a nightmare right now. Like, Mac Jones is just about getting by, but he's starting to wobble as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's not been good for the rookie quarterbacks, but obviously Trey Lance is the solution to all the problems when Jimmy Garoppolo has a few of those brain fart plays. But things went badly for him. What I think was more interesting is that, like, Shanahan makes some of these bad 4th down decisions, the punt versus no punt type of deals. It's like he gets so much credit, deservedly so, for being like a Rembrandt when it comes to painting the offensive picture generally and making life easier for Jimmy Garoppolo and everything, that his actual in-game decision-making with the 4th down and the 2 points and that kind of stuff is pretty bad.
Yeah.
And those, that's the thing where it's the easiest thing. There's no excuse for it. Like, the data's there. There's a dude giving it to you. There's somebody telling you, go for this. Don't punt it away.
The thing about the data too, because the coach's answer is usually, well, like gut and emotion and what's my team doing and all that stuff.
Like, those are just reasons to ignore what the facts are.
But that's fine. But that's kind of rolled into those numbers.
Yes.
Because you're doing it off of this massive history where all those inputs are in there. And it's like over the course of time, this decision is better than that one.
Your gut, or the single sort of intangible factor that you're folding into this and calling, your gut or intuition or game flow or whatever the thing is, right, needs to be so ridiculously standout, game-changing dynamic that it throws all of that out the window. Because otherwise, exactly what you're saying, like the fact that your left guard is getting whooped like getting beat like a drum, it's kind of in those numbers already, right? There have been bad left guards getting whooped in games where fourth down decisions have been made. It's in there. Now,
it also might not matter because this game's plays might not matter as much as the last 1,000 that guard has
played. But
played.
there's also like a difference between, our left guard is struggling in this game and we have like a rookie going up against Aaron Donald and literally every single play he's losing after half a second, right? Those are two different ends of the spectrum. So, okay, sure. What I'm saying is if that's your thought process, it better be as serious as the dude getting like a 0.0 pass blocking grade because Aaron Donald is in the backfield every play. That better be the magnitude of what you're talking about. If what you're talking about is our guard here is struggling a little bit and he's not doing great, doesn't cut it. That's not a reason to punt the ball away.
The other thing about fourth down decisions, it is very similar to Kyle Shanahan, a play caller, saying it's 3rd and 8, based off of history, based off of numbers. I think they're going to play this coverage, and when they play this coverage, here are my answers. Here are the plays. I'm going to call this play because I think it's going to beat that coverage. I'm not 100% sure on that, or I have an answer to whatever they're going to throw at me defensively. Usually they blitz. Usually they play this coverage. Usually they play man or whatever it is. It's the same thing. It's just playing the percentages based off the information that you have.
Right, but what punting is looking at that and saying in 3rd and 8, normally in these situations, these are the plays that I would run, but actually I'm not feeling it from the left guard today, so what I'm going to do is throw it to the running back in the flat for a dump off because that's an easy completion. And maybe he'll break 4 tackles and I'll get the first down anyway. Like, that's what it is. It's taking something that is clearly, like, just factually less likely to work, and because of your gut feeling on something that's happening in the game.
Or overreaction to what's happening in the game.
Going that route instead. It's just bad process.
Yeah, so all that said, look, the Packers' defense had not been playing well this year.
So, of course, turns up in this game.
They held 3.2 yards per attempt officially for the Niners. That includes a Garoppolo I think it was a scramble for Garoppolo. But either way, they did a really nice job shutting down Trey Sermon, Kyle Juszczyk, Greg Kittle, Greg Kittle, my gosh. George Kittle had a nice little 9-yard run with the trickeration. I thought the Niners would have better answers as far as the run game goes. As far as they've got one of the best run blocking tackle duo in the league and the whole thing. I thought they'd do a better job up front there.
I'm so surprised that they didn't use Trey Lance more in this game. Not as in let's bench Jimmy, he's playing badly, let's throw Trey Lance out there. But the last thing we saw from Green Bay was them blowing assignments on a zone replay to Jared Goff and watching Jared Goff scamper into the distance. Now you could say, okay, they probably weren't prepared for Jared Goff to run that. But why would you not at least test and make sure that they've shored that up during the week and that they've fixed things? Like, you've got Trey Lance here waiting for that kind of opportunity. The first drive, I would have been putting that out there and checking that was something they had got wrapped up.
It's a
and
really
if they
good
had,
point.
Fine, let's back off it. But Trey Lance had 2 snaps in this game. That's kind of crazy to me.
You talk about Shanahan's decisions and all that stuff, but the good one was down 17-0 at the half, just before the half, with 2 seconds left. The normal play, 2 seconds left on the 1 yard line. The normal play is to kick a field goal. This was what the Eagles did against the Patriots in the Super Bowl, though. They went for it, knowing it's the last play of the half, knowing you're either getting 7 or 0.
Yep.
And they got the 7, and that got them back in the game. So they got into 17-7. They got it to 17-14. They kept coming back. I got to credit the Niners. They kept coming back. The Packers didn't do a good job.
And it was a Trey Lance play.
It was a Trey Lance play. Every time he touched the ball, he scored. The Niners did a really good job coming back. The Packers didn't do a good job of sealing the deal, but give the ball to Aaron Rodgers at the end of the game. That was just incredible to be able to he created 2 chunk plays. Him and Devontae Adams find the holes in the zone and get into field goal range, and it's a 51-yarder for Mason Crosby for the game winner. Packers moved to 2-1. The week 1 debacle, 38-3, further in the rearview mirror. Packers look like the normal Packers.
They're slowly righting the ship. It hasn't been the complete about face that some teams have done, but really terrible in week 1. You know, Rodgers dismissed it as just one game at the time, but then week 2 against Detroit, it didn't look great. Rodgers didn't look great. It was a struggle. It was laborious, but they got a win. Now this week was kind of key because if they got stomped the way they did, you know, in the NFC Championship game or whatever, and they just got run all over by the 49ers, they couldn't stop Trey Lance on his own read, and we were just looking at this and going, well, the Packers defense is still soft. Rodgers didn't play his best game again. When is MVP Rodgers coming back, or is that guy gone? The Packers would be kind of in trouble. Not hugely because the division isn't great, but it wouldn't be good. But they do the complete opposite of that. They build on the Detroit game, and the defense actually shows up this time, and Rodgers has his best game of the season, looks like MVP Rodgers, and all of a sudden, like, everything's fine now. Now we're done. Now we've gone back from the terrible week 1 game, and in the course of 3 weeks, we're back to being a contender again.
Man, yeah, this is the real Packers. Early in the game, Niners tried to play a ton of man coverage on 3rd down. Was not working.
No.
Pass interference left and right, or Devontae just winning, or Alan Lazard with a 42-yarder on a slot fade. Rodgers was pinpoint on several throws. In the last 2 weeks, really. He's made a couple really nice throws. Looks like he's back to normal, though.
Yeah, this was vintage Rodgers in this game.
All right, that's it.
We're done.
Crisp 2 hours and 16 minutes or so.
Nailed it.
That's it. That's good. Really nice job.
You too, Steve.
We had a lot to talk about. Week 3 is in the books. Monday Night Football, we already previewed it on our preview show. It's the Cowboys and the Eagles. Should be a great one. Don't forget the PFF NFL Daily. We break down Justin Fields today at his debut. Talk about the Rams as well this week. Make sure you're subscribed to both. Just like Bill Simmons, by the way. Bill Simmons, big fan of the PFF NFL Daily. Gave us a shout out on his podcast.
I like that. You give him a shout out on the one he doesn't listen to.
He probably listens to this too.
Oh, you think he listens to this?
I don't think he's got 2.5 hours of time to listen to us.
Yeah, he's a daily.
I'll give him a shout out on the Daily too.
Okay.
Just telling the people, Bill Simmons seems to like it. So that's cool. All right, that's it for us. See you guys again on Wednesday.